first for news.
Catherine, just before you go...
Yes.
Sorry, you buzzed down to say something during that bulletin. I missed it. What were you suggesting I might have?
A stubbed toe.
Thanks very much. Didn't sound like that. Oh, well. Good morning, this is Iain Lee, BBC Three Counties Radio. It's 3 minutes past 6. It's early, but it's Friday, so that kind of makes up for it, doesn't it? I always find that however tired I am on a Friday, I can get through it because, to quote R. Kelly, it's the freaking weekend, baby. I'm about to have me some fun. Lots on the show this morning, including, as you heard in the news there, why an increasing number of children are being homeschooled in the three counties. If kids aren't taught in the classroom, does it make them, well, weird? Is work experience beneficial or just slave labour? We'll find out why businesses in Kings Langley are keen to offer young people unpaid work. And I'm asking, do you feel bullied into wearing a poppy? Did you hear the show a week or so ago when we had the Colonel in? Remember the Colonel? One of the most awkward bits of radio I've ever been involved in. He's back today. And my big toe is really hurting. I mentioned on Twitter last night, my toe's hurting. Instantly, fire back, spearheaded by Jonathan Vernon Smith. Gout. You've got gout. I don't drink port. I don't eat that much Stilton. Have I got gout? Is there a doctor in the house?
BBC Three Counties Radio.
Lots of ways to get in touch. Of course, you can email 3cr@bbc.co.uk. You can text 81333. Or the best way to get in touch, particularly at this time when all of the lines are free, is to give us a call. 08459 455 555. Now, I find this next one fascinating. This has always struck me as a little bit odd, really. BBC Three Counties has found that at least, 1,000 children... 1,000 children are being taught at home in beds, hearts and bucks, and that figure is rising. And it's thought that number could be much higher, because parents only have to tell their local council that they're home educating if they're withdrawing their child from school. Dr. Tony Sewell is an education commentator and CEO of the charity Generating Genius, which helps children from underprivileged backgrounds get into university. Good morning, Doctor.
Good morning.
What do you think about homeschooling?
Well, I think that for some people it might work, but for the majority it's a non-goer, and I tell you why. I think that the issue may well be that parents feel that they want to homeschool. I mean, I've come across it because either they're frightened that their child will be bullied, or on another level, there's sort of a protection thing going on, and that they haven't got their child into the school that they want to. But in your area, in those counties, I'm surprised because the schools are quite good in those areas. So I would have thought that it would be something more to do with this protective thing around bullying, and I don't think it's a good idea.
It could be argued, couldn't it, Tony, that it could be better for the child, because you're in a class, there are 30 other kids in there, you're not going to get the full attention. At home, you're getting the one-on-one focused attention. That could be beneficial, couldn't it?
All right, in my experience, the parents who have been able to do this the best are parents who are well-equipped, well-resourced. They do it as a mission, they kind of enjoy that process, and they've got the time and the energy. I don't know, to be honest, in reality, how many of us have got that time and energy to sit back and be able to do that. It's a rare parent that can do that. I know it's increasing, but it's a rare resource. On the positive level, I do think, though, that there are students who are extremely bright and extremely talented, and they may well find that the schooling process actually is very frustrating. Because, they can't really, they're not pushed, they're not stretched, they're not challenged enough. And they may indeed feel bullied as well because of that. And I think that maybe being homeschooled might help. But the reality is, as you know, in your newsroom and in the world of work generally, you're going to have a skill of getting on with other people. The way the world of work works is in teams. It's very rare that you're going to be able to, in the real world, just sit at home and work on your own. There are not many jobs like that. And I think that It's sad, really, because I think you do need that social skill of being able to deal with other people, however bad it might be.
I guess on an academic level, it could cause problems as well later in life in terms of GCSEs and A-levels and university, because you're not necessarily getting the education that's geared towards you going to those places, are you?
That's what I'm saying. I think I've come across personally parents who have pursued this, thinking, well, look, it's not good enough for my child. And actually, in my own project as well, I've had to almost insist that the parent put the child into mainstream school because the children are clearly are behind. So it's a mixed bag, but I do think overall that the parents may be on a mission here, and it's really one that is not really going to be good for the child. I think overall, children are best placed in a schooling context, in a socialising context. I don't mind if kids take a year out and maybe be homeschooled for a year or whatever, if the parent knows what they're doing. But overall, we children need to be keeping up to breast with what's going on. Schooling is a systematic process. You have to keep up every year, especially in primary school, being prepared for secondary. So,
Tony, does homeschooling make you weird?
I think that a lot of people, you kind of say that, a lot of people, no, I don't. I've come across people who have been homeschooled a little bit and they're okay, but overall, the ability to get on with other people, to have a partner, whatever, I think this happens in a socialising context, and I think that you're likely to be less able. Let's be political correct here.
Socially less able as opposed to weird. Dr. Tony Sewell, thank you very much indeed. He's an education commentator and CEO of the charity Generating Genius. Well, what do you think? What a delightful giggle Tony had there. Thank you for that. What do you think? Homeschooling, does it make you weird? We don't need political correctness on this show, no. Does it make you weird? Because you're at home with your mum teaching you. If you do homeschool your kids, or you were homeschooled, or you're a teacher and you think it's a ridiculous idea, 08459 455 555. Now listen, we all love a bit of the Mavericks, of course we do. You'd be insane not to love that Spanish gypsy flamenco style pop. But that song runs at 4 minutes 20. No record should be longer than 3:30. I'll give you 3:40 at a push. Anything beyond that is just you're entering Hey Jude Bohemian Rhapsody territory. Decadent and indulgent. Just like the sunny morning light. 08459 455 555. If you homeschool your kids, they're weird, aren't they? Being homeschooled makes you weird and completely incapable of dealing with the real world. I've always thought it was a strange thing to do. Send them to school, have some peace and quiet, watch Jeremy Kyle. Listen to JVS, sorry. Now, a planning application to expand the operations at a Hertfordshire quarry is being met with opposition by residents. Those fighting the plans for Codycock Quarry say it will lead to increased lorry traffic through the village as well as increasing noise and pollution. Here's what some residents had to say when Justin met them yesterday.
It's very difficult. I travel down this road in the morning to go to work. I work part-time, and quite often there's huge lorries careering up and down. That's a danger in itself. There's a school in the road, and the lorries, they make great big holes in the road too, so that's another danger. And we're a bit concerned about the dust that's going to come from all this expansion of the quarries. It's not healthy for us to breathe that in.
So any type of expansion, and we're talking any type here, it is absolutely outrageous as far as you're concerned.
The way it is at the moment, we don't need expansion, no. Totally against it.
Do you think the powers that be at the quarry care about you at all?
No, they don't care. They don't care. It's all about making money, isn't it? It's the business. No, they won't care.
Mary, you live in a beautiful house. It's a Grade 2 farmhouse. You're a matter of a few hundred yards away from the quarry. What happens here when these lorries go past your house?
Well, the amount of dust created, the noise, the buildings shake, and often they come up onto the pavement to get past parked cars. When the children are coming to school in the morning along this pavement in front of my house, they're in grave danger from these lorries because they do, as I say, have to come up on the pavement sometimes to get past. We get dust in the house, layers of dust, which isn't good for health. I've got asthma and it doesn't do me any good at all. But they also go at a great speed down here, a lot of them as well. And there have been large numbers of them, one after the other, going down this narrow road. This is a village. These roads were not built for lorries, and they're not doing the houses, the people, or the roads any good at all. The fact that they're going to increase it to this extent is going to make the village a terrible place to live in.
Well, this morning, our Quarry correspondent, Justin Dilly, was back in Codicott. He'll be meeting David Connell from the Codicott Quarry Action Group and hear what he has to say before 7. I need a doctor to call in. I'm worried about my toe. I'm seriously... Don't laugh. I'm seriously worried about my big toe. I hope it's not gout. I don't think it is. You have to amputate if it's gout, don't you? Oh, God. My toe hurts. Right, I've done nothing to it. Let's discuss it after this, please. Morning, this is Iain Lee, BBC Three Counties Radio. 08459 455 555 is the phone number. Kids that are homeschooled, are they a little bit weird? Be honest, because they don't have that social interaction of being in the school and dealing with all the politics. And yes, school can be a horrible place, of course it can be. But it's where you learn to deal with other people and interact. And if you are denied that... You're a bit weird, aren't you? I can't think of any other way to say it. 08459 455 555. Now, your son or daughter might be finding it difficult to get work. Well, businesses in a Hertfordshire village have come together to offer work experience with a difference. Teenagers try out a number of jobs with different companies rather than just one. Recent statistics showing that 1 in 5 youngsters are currently out of work in Hertfordshire. Well, BBC Three Counties reporter Sophie Solaria has been to meet 18-year-old Christina, who started her work experience at the Delicatessen in Kings Langley.
I don't think that staying in education was really for me, so I just kind of wanted to get more experience in actually working, and I think apprenticeship's like the best thing to go for.
And this is your first week?
Yeah, I just started on Monday and Tuesday.
So what have you done so far?
Mainly just worked in the cafe, serving people and kind of learning how to deal with customers, because I never worked in a cafe before, only a shoe shop. I had no idea about like coffee at all, so, and like cleaning and how important it is, especially in cafes.
So it's called life experience, let alone just the coffee shop experience.
I'm Jeff Falkins, and together with my wife Claire, we have a delicatessen and wine shop in Kings Langley. In general, they come in for 2 weeks and get about 2 days in each of 5 different businesses. So regular participants are people like the butcher. There's a fantastic mechanics shop here. They rebuild old vintage cars.
The Undertaker have been really great, haven't they?
The funeral directors.
Because that's one that they're always terrified to go to, and that's the one they always enjoy.
Well, joining us now is someone from that funeral directors. It's Jan Stevens from AC Tabman's Funeral Directors in Kings Langley. Good morning, Jan.
Oh, good morning, Iain.
You are involved with the work experience. It's not the most common of work experience placements, is it, of funeral directors? Is it popular?
It certainly seems to be. Much to our surprise, we were nervously thinking nobody would want to come and visit us. But we've had quite a few work experience people through our hands now.
What do they get to do, the work experience?
Well, we have to be particularly careful. We have to be sensitive to the needs of our grieving families, obviously.
Of course.
We can't mix in basically kids who've just left school with families who need our professional care and our professional help. So we've got to place these people somewhere where they can feel as though they're learning and where they can observe the whole process that we go through. So we do try and involve our visitors on going to a funeral service.
Right.
So that they can experience everything that happens on the day. Obviously, we get them involved in as much of the organising as we can do up front. Anything really to help them understand the pressure that our grieving families are under and how we can help as funeral directors.
Well, of course, it's a very emotional thing. Jan, I'm going to ask a question. I don't mean to sound insensitive, but when I saw that I was speaking to you, this genuinely interested me. Do they get to touch a dead person?
No.
They don't get to do that? OK, so they're removed from that situation?
Yes, they are, yes.
And are any of them a little bit... Because it is a little bit morbid. Of course, it's something we're all going to need at some point in our lives, probably several times. Yes. Do they display a kind of reluctance when they come in, or a little bit, oh, this is going to be weird, or are they a bit more open-minded about the whole thing?
Reluctance, no, because all of these people on our High Street project have a choice of which kind of businesses they'd like to go visit.
Right.
So they choose to come to us as they choose to go to the other businesses.
Mm.
Nervous, I would say, when they come in on day one, because they're not quite sure what to expect. So we spend quite a bit of time reassuring them that, this is the kind of thing we'll be expecting them to do and take part in.
And how old are they, Jan, the people you got coming in to help you?
late teens, early 20s generally. I mean,
Right.
Christina's coming to see us next week. She's got a couple of days with us, I understand. 18 to 22, in that age range,
So
really.
it's quite likely, although not definite, of course, it's quite likely they've possibly never even been to a funeral before.
It's more than likely they never have.
And how
One
do
of
they
our
react
visitors-
afterwards?
Well, they're reassured, actually. It's
Right.
a useful life experience to be able to go through a funeral service and planning
Yeah.
without having the emotional attachment because they don't know the family involved. And,
Yeah.
and that is helping these people to understand that they'll probably have to do it at some stage in their lives, but it gives them a big layer of understanding. It's useful.
Back to the work experience project itself. Are you likely to offer any of these young people permanent positions at all?
If we come across the right person, yes, we will. I mean, the whole high street is saying the same kind of thing. If we get someone really interested and they follow it up by visits after the work experience, then yes, we would be interested at looking at that kind of applicant, certainly.
There are some people, Jan, out there who might say, work experience, they're getting passed around all these different businesses, you're exploiting these young people. How would you respond to that?
I wouldn't agree with that at all. And I noticed earlier you were using the phrase slave labour about these visits as well. And that was where this whole project on our high street started. Adverse press publicity about big food chains using work experience as cheap labour. No, we view this quite differently. We view this as a way to help these youngsters understand what it's like in the real world. We give them some real life experiences. We do it as carefully as we can do. But even our input on these people is as much as, what do you wear when you go to work? How do you shake hands with someone? Do you have a conversation and hold eye contact? You know, lots of these background pieces about professional behaviour that they pick up in school.
They don't know how to shake hands with people?
Yeah.
They don't know how to do it?
Often not.
Really? I suppose
surprised.
Really? Well, there you go. That is
surprised how many of us on the high street have covered that ground.
How interesting.
Let's do that again. Let's start. Go back to the door. Come in. Start again. Now smile, and how shake our hands. And it's all little layers of confidence like that we're finding are so useful for them.
How interesting. Someone from the government has been to visit Kings Langley, haven't they, and taken an interest in the whole project. What have they said?
He was really interested. He was a representative from the Deputy Prime Minister's office. He was very interested in how this got off the ground, how we work with placing these kids in different work experience, and just the whole process of it all, really.
And so this could be spread across the country, then?
Well, we're keeping our fingers crossed.
Well, fantastic.
I mean, we can prove in Kings Langley it's got some value, so...
Jan, listen, thank you very much indeed. Jan Stevens from AC Tadman's Funeral Directors. I've spoken to funeral directors before. I find it a fascinating profession because it's something we're all going to have to be involved with at some point, probably more than once in our lives. I don't know anything about funeral directors. I've never been inside one. I don't know what goes on in there. It's something we all need to know about. Well, listen, I want to hear what your thoughts... Work experience. Have you done work experience? What did you think of it? Was it a valuable, beneficial experience? Or was it, we heard the phrase there, was it slave labour? Did you feel you were being exploited?
At lunch, England's cricketers are 521 for 9 on day 2 of their final warm-up match with Haryana in Ahmedabad. And Olympic heptathlon champion...
Ahmedabad.
I could see it looming over the horizon.
Yep.
Anyway, shh.
One more time.
Ahmedabad.
Thank you.
Olympic heptathlon champion...
Heptathlon.
Jessica Ennis has won the Sunday Times Sportswoman of the Year award. Ennis set 3 personal bests and the British record on her way to gold in London. That's your news and sport. Badly pronounced. I'll be back in half an hour.
Oh, go and have another drink.
Across beds, hearts and bucks, this is Iain Lee on BBC Three Counties Radio.
Coming up in the next half an hour, do you feel bullied into wearing a poppy? There's a lot of pressure on there, isn't it? It's one of the few charities that if you decide to opt out of, people frown on you. Do you remember the Colonel that was in last week, maybe the week before? It was one of the most awkward bits of radio I've ever been involved in my life. Left me fuming at the end. He's back on today, yeah, so do stick around. And it was my idea to get him back. And also why people living in Connecticut are worried about an increase in noise and pollution in their village. 81333. Start your text 3CR or give us a call 08459 455 555.
This is Iain Lee on BBC Three Counties Radio.
Do you feel guilty if you don't wear a poppy? An author has accused the Royal British Legion poppy appeal of straying away from its roots. Ted Harrison says it's heading towards commercialisation and appealing to B-list celebrities. He'll be joining us later on in the show. Well, our reporter, Gavin Lee, is embedded with 40 Commando in Lashkar in Afghanistan. He joins us live from there now. Good morning, Gavin.
Morning, Ian.
Can I ask, is it hot in Afghanistan? Is that a silly question?
My face is like a Belisha beacon today. We're 4.5 hours ahead, so, we've got intense heat, middle of the day, cloudless sky, dusty conditions. And the one benefit is in Lashkar, where I'm talking to you from at the moment, which is the British base, and it's already transitioned, so it's already in the hands of the Afghans, this area. The provincial capital is Lashkar. I mean, it's actually soldier's place in Persian. And it's pretty safe, so I'm not with flak jacket today, so my arms will get burnt too, but I've been to some pretty interesting areas with flak jacket in Norrie Siraj, and that's certainly incredibly hot. The soldiers, the conditions the Marines and the soldiers have to deal with.
You've been speaking to the troops up there, specifically about poppies, Gavin. How do they feel about people wearing poppies at home?
It's interesting that this is across the board, and I've been speaking since yesterday actually to some Marines from 40 Commando. I've just been speaking to an officer in One Lancs from Bedfordshire actually, who was talking about how they believe that the more people can wear, whether it's a jewellery, one of the female officers I spoke to had a brooch actually, a poppy brooch, and whether it's an umbrella, whatever it is, it's fine. They actually prefer people to wear the poppy in some shape or form because it's going to the British Legion. So providing they're buying it from the British Legion, the money's going to charity. In fact, one of the soldiers said to me, times have moved on. The days where you have this poppy that very easily will crush up and break or fall off, it's nice that there is something else. And as I look around me, walking around this base, and even some of the smallest patrol bases, one out in the middle of the desert, the Dash they call it, in intense conditions, very austere environment, about 200 or so living together, the Taliban 100 or so metres away in some cases, that you see the poppy, I see it all around me on troops here. So it's something that they, obviously care deeply about. And one said to me, if we see an officer here, if we see a soldier or Marine here, and they're not wearing it, we sort of look and think, where's your poppy?
That's interesting, isn't it? There's a little frown if someone's not wearing one out there. British troops due to leave Afghanistan in 2014. How do they feel about leaving?
It's interesting, and the views vary massively. In terms of the way they feel about the job they've done, I think, and what I've experienced, this is... let's face it, the goal that was originally set out to eradicate the Taliban, to eradicate the insurgency, Al-Qaeda, that's not going to be achieved in 2 years' time. I think there is an acknowledgement that they're still having problems. I was out at a patrol base 2 days ago. It's an incredible sight, actually. It was patrol base Clifton, in the middle of Norrie Siraj, this place that's now become synonymous with these green on blue attacks, Afghan forces killing British soldiers, rogue forces. And, they were talking about how there are still insurgents. The satellite balloon had been attacked a few days earlier, but it's like dealing with ghosts for them, that the Taliban might attack by night, then they're gone in the day. There are areas now we pass through, and road patrols, foot patrols, women and children are out, markets are, flourishing to a certain degree, bazaars, from, the microcosm of what I saw. And I went to one police base, an old Genghis Khan fort. I've never seen a view like it, in the middle of the desert, overlooking this beautiful valley and the Helmand River. And there are 10 Marines living with about the same number of Afghan police. And they said these guys are going to be ultimately responsible. And what I saw, they were doing a job. Fast forward 2 years' time, I think it's that's when time will tell. There's so much corruption in Afghanistan. There was another bomb blast yesterday, killed 20, 2 separate bomb incidents. So the threat of civil war in Afghanistan is still there.
Gavin Lee, be safe out there, for goodness sakes, man. Thank you very much indeed. Well, do you feel bullied into wearing a poppy? If you've made the decision not to wear a poppy this year, could you give me a call and let me know? 08459 455 555. Morning, Iain Lee, BBC Three Counties Radio. 08459 455 555. Lots on the go this morning that you might want to have a say about. Work experience. What are your work experiences, I guess, is the phrase. Have you done it? I did it when I was at school. Thought it was great. Did a couple of weeks, or maybe just a week's unpaid work at Windsor Theatre. And I had a fantastic time. It was great. Taught me how to make a cup of tea, taught me how to paint a bit of scenery, taught me how to interact with people. I thought it was superb. But there are some people that would say, actually, it's a little bit exploitative. You know, you're getting a few weeks free work from some kids, and then you're leaving them in the lurch. Your work experiences, good or bad, 08459 455 555. And poppies. Do you feel bullied into wearing them? There is a phrase that we were toying with using, the poppy fascists, that frown on you if you don't wear them. In TV, there is a lot of pressure to wear a poppy. I know the BBC did. I don't know if they still do. I don't know if they did. Someone told me they're not doing it this year, but I don't know. But I know that in previous years, if you were on BBC television, they would insist you wore a poppy. They would insist, whether you worked there or you're a freelancer or what, or a guest, they would insist. I was on Sky News last week, and there was a little bit of argy-bargy about me wearing a poppy, and the fact that they said, you have to wear a poppy, made me go, do you know what, I don't think I'm going to tonight. Now that you've said I have to, I'm going to... And also, you're giving me the poppy to wear, I'm not paying for it. 08459 455 excuse me, 555. Do you feel under pressure to wear a poppy? Now, this afternoon, very exciting on BBC Three Counties Radio, Nick Coffer speaks to Queen guitarist Brian May, who's touring with former Wicked performer and Hitchin girl Kerry Ellis. Have a listen to this.
He was very shy, Freddie, really, so everything that goes with that, I think he wove a kind of world around himself. And, of course, he was incredibly outgoing on stage, but that was his sort of stage persona. And I think he came from that perspective. He'd been very shy as a boy, and he'd been inspired by people like Cliff Richard, and Jimi Hendrix.
Who'd have thought Freddie Mercury would have been inspired by someone like Cliff Richard? It's a cracking interview. Brian May is always a good listen. Yeah, he's played the guitar solo to Bohemian Rhapsody to me in his garage. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I've stood next to him. I said, what does that button do on your guitar? Brian, he went, oh yeah, that makes the Bohemian Rhapsody sound. And then he started playing it. Yeah. You can hear that interview from midday today with Nick Coffer in sport. Here we go. Run up for these names. Liverpool's hopes of qualifying for the knockout stages remain in the balance after losing 1-0 in Russia to Gus Hiddink's Anzi Makachakala. I literally just made that last word up. Coming up. Apologies to Catherine, I have no reason to criticise her now. Well, I've got a few. Coming up, a planning application to expand the operations at a Hertfordshire quarry has been met with opposition by local residents. Before 7, we'll hear from David Connell from the Codicott Quarry Action Group. Now let's get the weather.
Beds, Hearts and Bucks weather.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
I forgot the weather was coming then, Elizabeth, so I hit the jingle a little bit too early, so just you can breathe in and breathe out again. I'll do it properly. Now,
thank you, Ian.
You're welcome. I don't want anyone to be caught unawares here. Now, at 6:46-ish, are you ready?
Yes.
Okay, here's the weather with Elizabeth Rosini. Away you go.
Okay, all right.
Whoa,
right,
hey, whoa, no, hang on.
No,
I set you up perfectly. I set you up perfectly and you stumbled there. What was that about?
No stumbling.
Okay.
All right, here we go. Here's the weather.
Here's the weather with Elizabeth Rosini.
And off we go. So it's a bit of a tricky day today. Temperature's down to around 7 degrees Celsius. I've run out of music.
Oh my God!
Would you like me to carry on?
Yeah, go on. Why not? It's my fault you ran out of music.
I'll put you in a nutshell anyway. And another cold night on Sunday to start the working week. We're going to see a frost. There we go.
Expertly done, Elizabeth. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll try and do it to time.
No, I will not talk so much next time. I do apologise. Here we go. A planning application to expand the operations at a Hertfordshire quarry has been met with opposition by local residents. Those fighting the plan say it will lead to increased lorry traffic through the village, as well as increasing noise and pollution. We're joined now by David Connell from the Codicott Quarry Action Group. Good morning, David.
Good morning to you.
Can I ask, why are you unhappy about the quarry?
2 or 3 reasons, really. We live in a quiet village. The quarry, which was originally a basic agricultural movement, it produced chalk twice a year, has suddenly become a semi-industrialised site. And frankly, our roads are just not up for it.
OK, David, say that. We did speak to the company. They didn't want to join us live on the programme this morning. However, Justin Dealey spoke to Nick Brownwell. He's a director of the Anstey Quarry Company yesterday. Have a listen, David. We'll get your thoughts on what he had to say after this.
Well, Nick, we're currently standing on St Albans Road, just outside the main entrance to the quarry. You currently recycle concrete 28 days a year. You want to extend that to around 300. Tell us why, first of all.
Well, at present, we're a soil screening plant, but with soil screening, it can't be done all year round. We're just looking at a bit of flexibility on our licence, so we can, when we can't screen soil, we can crush concrete. It won't actually happen 300 days a year. It probably will only be for a few months in the winter, but it just gives us the flexibility of all year round, being able to use our business to the maximum capacity.
I mean, people in the village are absolutely furious about this. You would say to them, in actual fact, the traffic up and down this road going through the village, if you are expanding, will amazingly decrease. Is that right?
We don't envisage there being any more lorry numbers on the road than there currently is. It's just that we've been asked to put a figure on there, which we have to do for licensing purposes.
But how does that work, though? If you're looking to increase it from 28 days a year up to 300 days a year, here comes a lorry right now, how would traffic decrease? I mean, I wasn't very good at maths at school, but I'm not quite getting this.
Well, the lorries, we will still do the same amount of work in the quarry, but we'll be more flexible with what we can do. Our lorries will not be able to do any more work as they currently do in a day now.
You're not just saying that now, and then when you do get the application, that'll change. You're saying this is fact, that there won't be an increase in traffic.
There won't be an increase in work, because we have stockpiles of materials in there which we can sell all year round.
Some of the locals say that you're damaging the roads here with your lorries. How would you respond to that?
The road has been resurfaced just recently, and we've resurfaced our gateway, but that is the first time in about 30 years since the licence in 1979 it has been done.
A few other points to put to you. I spoke to someone in the village a moment ago who said that you've got absolutely no regard whatsoever for the locals. It's just all about the cash. Is that true?
No, it's not. We went to the parish council before we put this application in to talk to them and to talk to the Coddycook Road Group to have a discussion about what we want to do. If they believe that lorry traffic is going up, then they have the right to. But we have tried talking to them.
David, you heard it. The lorry traffic won't go up.
Well, that's complete nonsense. We met the people unofficially about 3 weeks ago before their application went in. And the application, as I understand it, was for 20 movements in and 20 movements out per day. We actually questioned Mr. Bramwell, and he admitted that it could be over 80 a day. So how disingenuous is that? The next thing is that what they're trying to do, the activity of crushing concrete, is not anywhere in any of their permits. They were originally there for soil screening and, well, primarily chalk extraction, but recognising that that's probably only a twice-a-year occupation. They did soil screening. The soil screening then produced various arisings, various stones and stuff, and they were allowed to bring in a crusher for 28 days a year to work out those arisings and turn them into Type 1, which is fine. But it's now become a major activity, bringing in concrete. There's nowhere in any of their permits that give them permission to have a permit to crush concrete.
David, we've got 30 seconds. Where do you go from here? What happens next?
Well, we're going to make sure that everybody in the village has written to all the interested parties, make sure our feelings are felt, and the views will be taken when they have the planning meeting.
Thank you very much indeed, David Connell there from the Coddycock Quarry Action Group, 08459 455 555. It's Arthur Walwyn. Who the hell is Mark Walwyn? That was the singer from the... for some reason I called him Mark Walwyn earlier on, from the BBC introduction track. I can only apologise, Arthur. Please, don't send your posse round to tag me or something. I don't know. 08459 455 555 is the telephone number if you want to give me a call. Do you feel bullied or pressured into wearing a poppy? Do you feel a bit guilty if you don't wear a poppy? Is it right, if you decide to opt out of a charity, that you can feel a little bit rotten? Good morning. It's 7 o'clock. I feel I can kind of breathe a little bit. Now, settling into the show with only 2 hours to go. 2 hours of the week, and then it's the weekend. Wonderful! Saying that, I'm having lunch with Jonathan Vernon Smith and the boss. One of us is going. I hope it's not me. Lots on this morning that I'd like to get your opinion on, if you don't mind, including BBC Three Counties finds the number of children being homeschooled is rising. Kids who are taught at home instead of school, are they a bit weird? Does it make you weird? It always made me feel a little bit uncomfortable to think that there are kids who are being taught at home instead of school. If you do it, I'd love to hear from you. If you homeschool your kids, or you've been homeschooled, could you give me a call? 08459 455 555. Also, do you feel pressured into wearing a poppy? An author has accused the Royal British Legion poppy appeal of straying away from its roots. And is work experience just cheap labour? We'll be finding out what one Hertfordshire village is doing to improve young people's jobs prospects. 81333, start your text 3CR. Go to the Facebook page. Pictures of me in another new shirt. I know! Another new shirt. Facebook.com/BBC 3CR. You can go up there and have your comments about the show as well. Even rude ones. I don't mind. Or, the best way to get in touch is to give me a call. 08459 455 555.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
Now, BBC Three Counties Radio has discovered that at least 1,000 children are being homeschooled in the Beds, Herts and Bucks, and it seems that number is on the increase. Parents only have to tell their local council that they're teaching at home if they're withdrawing their child from school. So that number could be much higher to include kids who've never been to school. Imagine that! Each week, 15 homeschooled children go to what's called a forest school in Milton Keynes to learn outdoor skills. Our reporter Jessica Cooper went along to find out more.
Hello, I'm James and I'm 11.
Hello, my name's Hannah and I'm 8.
We've got some rope here and we're going to tie it around the trees. So we're going to connect it with the shelter. And we're going to loop it around the tree, get some wooden pegs that we've made and peg it in, and we've got our shelter.
So this is the kind of thing that you learn when you come to forest school, how to make shelters. What else do you do here?
We learn how to use all the equipment safely. We know how to cut down a small tree, which is very useful.
It's very good and we learn lots of new things.
So it's very adventurous. Every day we can try something new.
You all go to school at home, don't you? You don't go to school in school.
Yeah.
What's that like?
It's absolutely brilliant. It gives you a lot more free time and you can get more work done in an hour than anyone can do in a whole day at school, because one teacher has to focus on so many students learning the exact same thing, whereas at home you can just sit down, learn things. I mean, you could do one morning and you could take the next day off.
Do you ever feel like you miss going to school, or you would like to go to school to see other children?
Not really. I've been to school before and I didn't really like it, so...
I went to my lower school and then I went up to middle school for about 3 months and I didn't like it.
Hi, I'm Nikki Saunders. I'm the Education Coordinator for the Parks Trust, and today you find me in my capacity as Forest School Leader. At the moment we're working with a group of home educated kids called Free Range Education.
Do you notice a difference between children who do learn at home in comparison to the children that you work with that are from mainstream schools?
Definitely, yeah. It's because they're taught in a completely different way, but ultimately the goal is the same, is getting them to develop as a person.
Sarah, you have 2 children who are here at the Forest School today, and they're usually educated at home.
Yes.
So why have you made that decision then?
They didn't like preschool. It wasn't a way that they liked learning, and they've been so much happier and more confident for not being forced into doing something that they didn't want to do.
So Heidi, how old are your children, and what made you decide to educate them at home?
They're 9 and 7, but I joined education. Otherwise, I read everything in the library. I started meeting up with home educating families, and by the time Jake was school age, I couldn't think of a single reason to send him to school. I have not regretted it for a moment. It's been brilliant.
Some people argue that by being at home with maybe their parent and a sibling, that they're missing out on that inclusion of the playground.
Yeah, we're in the middle of a forest with 15 children. They are being socialised as we speak. You know, they're having those opportunities to fight and fall out and make up and be friends and run the gamut of what relationships are. And there is no loss of socialisation through home educating.
So did one of those mums say that their kids didn't like preschool, so they decided to homeschool them? Really? There are lots of things that kids don't like doing. It's tough. That's called life, isn't it, surely? My boy didn't like having Fireman Sam stopped yesterday, didn't? We had to go to the hospital. He didn't like Fireman Sam being stopped. So what? We'll just let him watch Fireman Sam all day, shall we? 08459 455 555 is the telephone number if you want to give us a call about that. That's right. Oh, they didn't like going to preschool, so I decided not to send them there. Hang on a second. What happens when they don't like going to university, or they don't like going to work? What do you do then? Ophelia's in Luton. Good morning, Ophelia.
Hi, Ian. How are you this morning?
I'm a little bit angry. I'm a little bit angry. The kids didn't like preschool, so we took them out. It's tough.
I do question the benefits of homeschooling. There's a number of things that I feel that it doesn't address, and the main thing is about the development of a child in terms of emotional, psychological, behavioural, and also that negotiating that needs to take place in the playground, which is a reality that you need for skills in later life. You're not going to get that. I heard someone mention about that they socialise with 15 other children. That's 15 selected other children.
Yeah.
What do they learn about other people's cultures, other people's
You want to mix with different colours, different races, different religions, different social backgrounds. You want all of those things.
Exactly, because that's what reflects the real world out there, the real workplace. And then I feel there's great implications for long-term relationships, who they can mix with, who they can work with, and that causes a sense of isolation, because that what you're saying about your son didn't like ending Fireman Sam or a program. The children are challenged to understand there's rules and boundaries, and you have to comply. And also, I'm concerned about, which was a discussion with a colleague the other day, the way that the level of standards to meet the curriculum expected for teachers teaching children within schools is not the same for homeschool. You can just write to your educational department, I'm homeschooling, end of story.
What are you going to do about it, girlfriend?
Exactly, and you're checked once a year.
Yeah.
And the thing is that I question those children's ability to fit within the workplace, to fit within society, to work with neighbours and so forth in life.
Listen, and school isn't perfect. There are lots of things that are wrong with school. For example, Ophelia, this may be controversial, I would get rid of maths. I don't think you need maths. I would. No, I would. They're looking at me in the other room. What? No, I tell you, as long as you can add up and do a little bit of simple arithmetic, I get rid of it. You don't need it. Because there was a big thing in the papers yesterday about kids at the age of 10 are using calculators in school.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. Well, that's fine. We don't need maths. Okay, I would get rid of it.
Okay.
It's pointless.
As long as you can... your own feelings about maths.
No, it's a fact. It's a fact, Ophelia. Okay. When did you last use maths?
I'm going to use it today.
Why? What are you doing?
I've got to add up my mileage and stuff like that.
Okay, right. You can add that up. You can add that up, can't you? You've got a calculator on your phone, so you've got to add up some mileage. You could do that with a bit of paper. That's all you need. When did you need to do algebra or long division, Ophelia?
Okay. Let me say, if you're a nurse, you're a doctor, you need to have a bit of maths.
Why does a nurse need to have a bit of maths?
Medication, I remember when I worked alongside medical staff, the measuring of medication,
oh, for goodness sake, 15 millilitres, it's written on the side of the thing.
It's a bit more than that. What about pharmacists who are making up
pharmacists can do... I'm not saying make it illegal. I'm saying that maths, if you're going to be a pharmacist or an architect, then OK, fine, you can go and learn maths, but it shouldn't be compulsory.
So therefore, I'm going to argue and say that we should understand all our MPs who Margaret Moran, who miscalculated...
Well, hang on a second. That's an ongoing court case, so we can't talk about that. Let's wait to the verdict before we start throwing mud around there. No. It's an ongoing court case, so we won't talk about that. But in general, no, the MPs that have gone to prison for doing that were very naughty because they didn't do the basic maths, right?
But they didn't get the maths right because they didn't understand maths. They have
maths lessons. They have maths lessons, so we might as well just give us a waste of time, Ophelia. Honestly, we don't need anything more than basic maths in school. It's pointless.
All right, then, Ian, I'm going to say to you that I feel that there is a psychology behind every single lesson that a child is told is mandatory, because it engages different parts of the brain. It causes different parts of the brain to grow, and it causes you, that sort of learning causes you to apply it to other things in later life.
Ophelia?
Yeah?
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
What are you doing this weekend?
Do you know I'm having to work? You're not going to believe it.
Go on.
I'm working.
Good.
But it's on written work, so Yeah. It's not maths at all. I must admit, I'm not good at maths.
There we go, you see. It's pointless. Ophelia, thank you very much. You don't need maths. Beyond basic maths, you don't need it. Get rid of it. But back to the homeschooling, for that is indeed what we're talking about this morning. Does it make kids a little bit weird? I'd love to speak to you if you homeschool your kids, or if you were homeschooled and you came out of it and thought, do you know what? I don't really fit into society as much as perhaps I should. 08459 455 555. Does homeschooling make you a little bit weird? Now, guess who's coming back on the show later on? Yeah, Colonel John Hamilton. You don't remember the name? OK, well, let me remind you. He came in the other week. He was upset about his parking situation in Luton when he was selling poppies. They'd taken away his free parking space. It turned out to be... I've been doing radio for years and years and years. It was one of the most awkward moments of radio in my life. Have a listen.
I'm upset about not being given free parking and the security that goes with it. It's a two-part thing.
Why can't you pay for the parking?
Me personally, of course I can. Tell me why I should.
You tell me why you shouldn't.
No, you tell me why I should.
Because everybody has to pay for parking and all the other charity collectors pay for the parking. Now you tell me why you shouldn't.
I shouldn't because the Royal British Legion should be supported by them all. The Royal British Legion should not be giving money to them all to sell poppies.
Right.
It's the other way round.
Awkward, huh? It got even more awkward than that. Well, he's agreed to come back on after 7:30, so do stick around. And he's on because I promised in the office yesterday I would not cut him off. So I'm not allowed to use the cut-off button when he phones up at all. I've made that promise. It's going to be a cracking listen. Don't go anywhere. Do give us a call, 08459 455 555. Now, this is interesting. Your son or daughter, of course, may be finding it difficult to get work. Well, businesses in a Hertfordshire village have come together to offer work experience with a difference. Teenagers get to try out a number of jobs with different companies instead of just one, so they'll kind of move around between the different places. Recent statistics show that 1 in 5 youngsters are currently out of work in Hertfordshire. We sent our reporter, Sophie Solaria, to Kings Langley to meet deli owner Jeff Falkins, the man behind the idea.
I'm Jeff Falkins, and together with my wife Claire, we have a delicatessen and wine shop in Kings Langley.
Hello, Claire. And I'm Claire.
So how it works is in general, they come in for 2 weeks and get about 2 days in each of 5 different businesses. So regular participants are people like the butcher. There's a fantastic mechanics shop here. They rebuild old vintage cars.
The Undertaker have been really great, haven't they?
The funeral directors.
Because that's one that they're always terrified to go to, and that's the one they always enjoy.
And so each business along here is involved in this scheme?
A lot of them, yeah. And some have different needs more than others. There's some who can regularly take people in. For some, it doesn't suit at all. If you've got a small boutique, you don't need somebody coming because there's not a lot going on. But they can tap into the scheme. So if, let's say, they had a project coming up of cleaning or organising, they'd get a couple of days' help. But the candidate would also get a chance to experience what they do and learn about their business.
If you look on the TV news and whatever, and you hear about unemployed youngsters in particular, they're not given a particularly good press. So I was quite surprised that businesses actually wanted to be involved in the programme, really. I think it's one of those things that should grow as time goes on, really. And the more employers that are involved, the better it'll be, and hopefully we'll get some good outcomes.
This is Christina. She's the latest candidate in our programme from the Job Centre. And so Christina joined us a couple of days ago.
So, Christina, what got you into the Kings Langley Work Experience Scheme then?
I just thought it'd be a good idea, experience different things that I probably would never think to at all.
So, you didn't want to go to university, you knew you wanted to go straight to work?
Yeah, I don't think that staying in education was really for me, so I just kind of wanted to get more experience in actually working, and I think apprenticeship's like the best thing to go for.
What's your long-term career goal? What do you want to do?
I'm quite unsure about that. Well, I was more interested in photography to begin with at the end of my A-levels, but that's quite unstable.
And this is your first week?
Yeah, I just started on Monday and Tuesday.
So what have you done so far?
Mainly just worked in the cafe, serving people and kind of learning how to deal with customers, because I never worked in a cafe before, only a shoe shop. I had no idea about like coffee at all, so, and like cleaning and how important it is, especially in cafes. So
it's called life experience, let alone just coffee shop experience. Christina, you're heading off to the estate agents now. Would I be able to catch up with you in a little while to see how you're getting on?
Yeah, sure.
Well, we'll find out later on how Christina got on at the travel agents later in the programme. But first, is work experience a good thing for the young and unemployed? Or, in reality, is it just taking advantage and a way of getting cheap labour? Joanna Long is from Boycott Workfare, a UK-wide campaign to enforce unpaid work for people who receive welfare. Good morning, Joanna.
Morning.
And we've also got Katie Hopkins, who's an entrepreneur and former apprentice contestant. Good morning, Kate.
Good morning.
Joanna, we'll start with you, first of all. From what you've heard, what do you think of the work experience scheme that Kings Langley are running alongside the Job Centre?
Well, it definitely doesn't sound like the worst example of workfare, but it's got to be seen in a wider context of the Job Centre's work experience scheme, which isn't the traditional concept of work experience at all. It's been rolled out on such a massive scale that it's actually starting to replace paid jobs and paid overtime, so that it's actually reducing job opportunities for young people. So we're seeing 100,000 placements a year through the Job Centre. What's interesting about Kings Langley is it's smaller businesses, which sounds a lot better, but actually what's happening more broadly is big companies like Argos are actually replacing their Christmas staff with these schemes. We heard from someone recently who was told initially they'd be doing 2 weeks, and then Argos upped it to 6 weeks. Well, of course they are, because Christmas is coming up and they can get free labour instead of paying for work, and that's what really worries us, is that if there's work to be done, it should be paid, and unless it is, it's reducing opportunities for young people rather than helping them.
Kate Hopkins, work experience is reducing opportunities and it should be paid.
It's an absolute nightmare to say something like that, and I think Boycott Workfare have got a lot to answer for. I think unless they're offering us an alternative solution, then they need to really rethink their sort of argument, really. I think they now just want people to bum off welfare. So Boycott Workfare is actually just bum off welfare. I think if young people are offered an opportunity and employers are prepared to invest in them in different ways in order to give them a start in life, then that's a fantastic thing. You know, you may not pay someone a wage to work for you when they're a student, but you do invest in them in so many other ways. You have to help train them. You have to help them to understand the conventions and norms of commercial business operations. You have to explain to them, you know, the very basics about turning up on time, wearing the right outfit, the appropriate appearance that you want. So I think these schemes are absolutely fantastic. I applaud the young people that are grabbing those opportunities with both hands to accept them. And I, as an employer, think they're just a brilliant way of getting people experience and getting them into work.
Joanna, you're encouraging people to bum off welfare, and you're denying people the experience that these kind of projects give.
Not at all. I mean, when I was a young person, I worked in a baker's, I worked in a shoe shop, I worked in a cafe, I worked in a gift shop, and I was paid for every single one of those opportunities to learn work experience. And that's what we should be aiming for our young people. This is part of a general picture of reducing expectations and opportunities for the young. If people are doing low-skilled work in shops, that is something they should be paid for. It's really good to hear that the young person you interviewed is benefiting from her placement, and it does sound like it's structured to give people more general experience, but that is not built into the way the government has set up these schemes. Its own research shows that it doesn't actually increase people's chances for employment because it actually dents the time they have available to
Kate, there will be lots of people who say, if you're doing some work, then you of course you should be paid for it. It's exploitative.
I just think, you know, we've got, as you said, 1 in 5 of our young people are currently unemployed. So 1 in 5 of our young people have no way of entering the labour market whatsoever. So when we talk about how workfare is wrong and how not paying people is wrong, you know, what is the alternative? How are these young people then, this 1 in 5, if that's your son or daughter, you know, wouldn't you be happier that they are working, that they are earning experience, that they are potentially earning themselves a role? Wouldn't you be happier for that than them sat at home getting welfare and really with having no path forward in life? As a mother, I want my children to be employed, and as a mother, if someone agreed to take them on, if they show that they are willing, capable, if they show that they can really demonstrate they are a commercial asset to that company, they could be given a job. You know, it's a fantastic way forward, and if it was me on workfare, I would be out there and I would be determined that at the end of that 6-week period of unpaid labour, I would be given a role. I would make that my priority and my problem. And it's not the government's problem to solve this. It's the young people's problem. And I think this scheme is fantastic.
Katie, isn't there a difference, though, between there's work experience and there's work experience, isn't there? That you can have work experience in the supermarket, stacking shelves for 3 weeks, or you can have work experience in a hospital where you're actually helping, you're filling in forms, you're doing something more productive. So do you not think that the stacking the shelves could be a little bit exploitative, or do you still see that as a good opportunity?
Look, I'm about to spend a day in a law office working to help people become more productive. You know, fundamentally work, whatever it is, whether it's a lawyer, the solicitors, stacking shelves, whatever work is, there's some fundamentals involved, and those fundamentals are application to task, being able to graft, turning up on time, being committed to that company. You know, those are just fundamentals, and they apply whether you're stacking a shelf or whether you're, supervising a team of individuals. And if you get yourself into the workplace, surely you're acquiring those skills, and surely your CV is going to look better when you've got 6 lots of 6-week work experience than it does with absolutely nothing on it at all, apart from a couple of pretty lame GCSEs.
But there possibly are some people who do exploit the gaps. We just had a message on our Facebook page from Javain. Work experience is an opportunity for employers without scruples to exploit the young. My son was paid less than £2.50 per hour for 2 years whilst he trained to be a hairdresser. He worked on the shop floor, styling like a fully qualified stylist. They refused to qualify him. Now, that's a bit naughty, isn't it?
Of course, there's always going to be examples that we can pull up that show that employers probably haven't committed in the way that they should. But I think in the main, if you're the type of person that's going to make this life work for you, if you're the sort of person that's going to say, look, this labour market is truly horrific at the moment, but I am going to be one of those people that does get a job. If you make it your prerogative, your problem, make it your determination that drives you forward, you will find employment and gainful employment at that. And I think any experience is better than no experience, and clearly working on a shop floor is better than sitting on a sofa. So come on, get out there, get working, and support people that are offering this kind of work experience, and stop allowing boycott workfare to have a voice.
Joanna, times have changed, haven't they? And there aren't many jobs. Surely people need to do whatever they can to get a foot in the door, don't they?
Yes, sadly it is a really difficult situation at the moment, but when you talk about an alternative, there's a very clear alternative, and it's paying the young people for the work they do. Poundland is heavily involved in this scheme, and its profits have gone up 27% this year, so don't tell me that they can't afford to pay their staff and help people get paid work experience like we were able to when we were younger.
OK, listen, we'll have to end it there. Joanna Long from Boycott Workfare, and Katie Hopkins, entrepreneur, and you possibly remember her from The Apprentice. Thank you very much. Fascinating. Well, in the next hour of the programme, we'll be speaking to delicatessen owner Jeff Falkins, who came up with the work placement idea in Kings Langley. And I do want to hear from you, your experience with work experience. Did you find it good, positive, helpful? Did you get a job at the end of it? Or did you think they were taking the mick a little bit? Two very opposing views there from Joanna and Katie. Who do you agree with?
Call 08459 455 555.
08459 455 555.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
Hey, do you feel bullies into wearing a poppy? An author has accused the Royal British Legion poppy appeal of straying away from its roots. Ted Harrison says it's heading towards commercialisation and appealing to B-list celebrities. We'll be speaking to him next. Also, work experience. I want your work experience stories, please. 08459 455 555. And kids who are homeschooled, are they a little bit weird? 81333, start your text 3CR, facebook.com/BBC3CR. Now, do you feel guilty if you don't wear a poppy? Our reporter, Justin Dealey, has been out on the streets to find out what you think.
Well, here's Elizabeth. You think that everyone should be wearing a poppy, don't you? Absolutely everybody.
Yes, I do. I think it's something that we should always remember. It should never be forgotten, and I think the next generation also needs to be told. And that includes my grandchildren as well.
And you're wearing a poppy for a very special reason. Tell us more about that.
My ex-husband was actually in the forces. He was out in Ireland. He did the Falklands, and he did the First Gulf War. So it's quite close to my heart. Although we're not married anymore, I saw what he was like when he came back.
Some people say that they're almost put on a guilt trip to wear them, though. Do you think that's going a bit too far?
Yes, I do. I mean, certainly the old veterans that sell them, they certainly don't pressure anybody. And there's quite a few around the town, and I've certainly never felt pressured to buy one.
Jennifer, as somebody who is wearing a poppy this morning, should others be made to feel guilty if they're not wearing one?
No. It's a matter of personal choice. But I think people should wear one because a lot of soldiers have died and they're very, very brave. And I come from a military family, and a lot of my family did die in the war. My grandfather was never the same when he came back, and I think we should just remember them all.
OK, just lastly, what do you think is a fair price to pay for a poppy? I know this is quite a big debate, but what do you think is a fair price to pay for one?
About 50 pence or a pound. I think it's worth it for a soldier, if not more, as much as you can afford.
Well, Ray, you are wearing a poppy this morning, but often it drops off because you're busy at work. Yeah. When it does drop off, do you feel guilty for not wearing one?
I do, yeah. But when I buy one, I always buy two, actually, and I'll keep one indoors, and then I've always got one to replace it. Yeah. Because the thing is, if you walk around without one, you've got poppy sellers there, and they never believe you if you say, I've got one indoors, I've got to put it on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd feel guilty.
Do you think that people look at you in a different light if you're not wearing a poppy then?
No, I don't think so. I don't know if people even notice it, do they? I don't know.
It's interesting what you're saying, though, because you're saying that you do feel guilty if you don't wear one.
Yeah, I do, because it's a very special thing, isn't it? So I always make sure I've got one.
Now, madam, you're wearing a poppy this morning, like many people here, and you think people should be made to feel guilty for not wearing one?
I wouldn't say guilty, but I think they should think about it. To be honest, yes.
I mean, if you saw somebody not wearing one, would you automatically look at them in a different light, look down on them almost?
I wouldn't look down on them, but I would think that they should think strongly about what happened and why we're wearing the poppy, to be honest, what went on. Yes.
It's Poppy correspondent Justin Dealey out there on the streets. Well, Ted Harrison is the author of Remembrance Today. He has accused the Royal British Legion Poppy Appeal of straying away from its roots and heading towards commercialisation and appealing to B-list celebrities. I'm also joined by Colonel John Hamilton. He sells poppies in Luton to raise money for the Royal British Legion, my former sparring partner. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning, Colonel. Now, Ted, we'll start with you. Why do people in the public eye feel they have to wear one of these poppies?
There are some people, I'm sorry to have to say, that I think wear them with ostentation. I think some of the politicians are guilty of that. There are times also perhaps when people in the entertainment business feel that they want to put one on and it's good for the image. So there's that side of it. And one of the things that worries me about that is that could trivialise the wearing of the poppy, because it is such an important symbol and it's for such an important reason. Because of what it is, I think one has to be careful about not trivialising or sentimentalising, or, in fact, thinking of the horrors of war, actually belittling the horrors of war through the way in which one does remember, because sometimes you can get a bit over-sentimental in some of the remembering of those who died and forget what it was really, really like.
Colonel, some people are wearing them just so they look good, and we're trivialising or over-trivialising what they actually mean. How do you react to that?
Well, you've got an interesting concept, haven't you? You're talking about peer pressure. And peer pressure is commonest in youth. So it's very noticeable in the first week of the Poppy Appeal that school children who are on half-term are pressurising their parents to come and get the poppy, which I'm delighted about because the parents come and give money and the children wear the poppy, and there is a sort of peer pressure in some schools to wear the poppy. However, when you talk about adults, the peer pressure to wear a poppy is far less tangible. Who do people actually acknowledge as their peer these days? And will they then follow that person's wearing of the poppy? And there are fine examples of this. In the House of Commons, for example, they wouldn't be seen without the poppy. TV presenters are given their poppies in makeup, with the notable exception of Jon Snow. You yourself, 10 days ago, when I offered you a poppy, declined. So I would ask you, are you wearing a poppy?
Is it relevant if I'm wearing a poppy?
I'm asking you a question. Have the courtesy to answer me.
I am not wearing a poppy, Colonel, no.
No. Well, you said you were going to donate £1. Do you think that is a suitable amount to give?
I do. And we heard someone in the package there with Justin say 50 pence. It's what would you think is a suitable amount, Colonel?
Well, I would be delighted if everyone who bought a poppy gave me £1 instead of a penny.
A penny's a bit naughty. Ted, the Colonel is a very noted poppy seller in the area. Do you think that there is... some people can be disappointed with the amount of money that's put in the pot. Is that another form of pressure, do you think, Ted?
Well, you give what you can afford and what you think is right to give, and I don't think one should put any pressure, moral or otherwise, on people as to how much they give. Different people can afford different amounts. The money itself is very... is absolutely important still, because there are still young men and women who have come back from the services who are injured, need the support of the Legion through their life. This is very important. But the best thing we can do to honour those who have died is to ensure that the future generations don't have to test their heroism on the battlefield. It's to do with maintaining the peace. And if there is any danger whatsoever that by trivializing or glorifying or over-sanitizing the horrors of war through the whole process of remembrance, so that politicians in the future might find it easier to persuade people to support a war, then that's just one of those worries we've got to have behind in our minds all the time.
Ted, what's different this year, do you think, about the Royal British Legion's approach to fundraising?
Well, they have got in a rather slick PR advertising campaign, and it's a negative, not a positive one. There is something missing. And
these are the big posters, aren't they, with a picture of a buttonhole, and it says there's something missing.
There is indeed, and I'm also a bit worried too about this slogan of standing shoulder to shoulder with the troops, because not that I'm not showing all respect to those who are serving, but because that is moving away from the origins. Actually, right at the beginning, when the poppy did become the symbol of remembrance, it was worn in grief, because there were so many families, sadly, who had lost men in the battle in battles of the First World War. And it was also worn as a statement that horrible war should be the war to end all wars. It was a symbol of peace. It wasn't actually to support those troops who were still fighting or still involved. It was actually to make a statement for peace and mourn and grieve for those who've been lost.
Colonel, the Royal British Legion, they've got a slick PR machine in that's perhaps changing the message, and the message has evolved over the years to something different. How do you react to that?
Well, I've not seen it.
It's a big picture of a lapel, a buttonhole, and it says...
Yes, I've heard your description. I've not seen it, so it's not crossed my horizon.
Well, let me describe it to you and let's get your reaction. It's a picture of a buttonhole, and it says, is something missing?
Mm-hmm.
Well, do you not think that's perhaps
a
little bit leading?
Buttonhole, remember? It's an empty buttonhole.
Yes, an empty buttonhole, yes. Is that not a little bit leading, Colonel?
Trouble is, most people don't have buttonholes these days. I would agree with Ted Harrison about one thing, and that's bling. The poppy is being turned into a bling emblem, and people are spending £20 or even £80 on these fancy poppies. The poppy is a very simple thing, and it's not worn for pride, it's worn for remembrance. And it's worn so that people can donate what they can afford to the poppy appeal. And I'll come back to the pound. If you donate £1, it actually equals twopence a week over the year. It is not a lot of money, but we need lots of it because the British Legion's commitments to helping people who've served in the forces are absolutely huge, which you know.
Colonel, you mentioned earlier on about if you go to the BBC, and this is absolutely true, I don't know if it is this year, I know it has been in the past, that in makeup you are given a poppy. And I know in the past that you've not been allowed to refuse it. Is that appropriate? Because you are wearing it, almost, as you say, surprisingly, for bling. You are not wearing it because you have bought it using your conscience and your own money. It's because you are being told to. Is that right?
I don't know. Ask your colleagues in the BBC.
Well, I'm asking you for your opinion, Colonel.
My opinion is that people who wear the poppy should have made a donation for it, and if people are wearing it because it's put on in makeup, then they should be ashamed of themselves if they haven't donated to the Royal British Legion poppy appeal by putting something in a collecting box.
Can I ask the Colonel a question? Really, I think it gets to the nub of some of the problems here. The Royal British Legion is the custodian of the dignity of remembrance and of the act of remembrance. It also has the other responsibility of raising money as best it can, as much as it can, to help those who've been injured in conflicts. Are there any boundaries that the British Legion can cross in actually raising the money? Are there some things that are inappropriate? And the sort of things I'm thinking of is when British Legion sell poppy golf umbrellas to raise the money, or do deals with commercial companies so that their products can be associated with the poppy in exchange for money.
Well, the commercialisation of the poppy is available 52 weeks of the year, isn't it? And if people play golf and they want to carry a poppy umbrella with them, why not?
Does that not seem a little disrespectful?
To whom?
Well, to those that have fallen, to be wandering around a golf course celebrating luxury and entitlement and wealth, when it should be remembering those that we've lost.
Interesting concept, but we should remember the sacrifices of our servicemen throughout the year. If someone carries a golf umbrella with a poppy on it, I'm very happy about that.
Colonel, I'm a big fan of the white poppy that it is remembering our fallen.
Yes.
But is also, it's embracing pacifism and the end of war.
Yes.
Which is a nice idea, isn't it? What do you feel about those?
Well, white's a rather unfortunate colour, isn't it? White is associated with white feather. White feather equals cowardice. You're talking about white poppies. Where do white poppies grow? They grow in Afghanistan. They produce heroin. The poppies from Flanders are represented by the colours that the Royal British Legion uses on its poppy.
But it has a very specific message, doesn't it? No more war, which is a nice idea.
It's a lovely idea, yes. And down history, it's never happened, has it?
Ted, sorry, you want to come in?
I think you have to remember the history of the white poppy, and that is that it came about in between the world wars. An Anglican clergyman introduced it through an organisation called the Peace Pledge Union. And the idea was that it was a way of being able to reinforce the message of peace at a time when the Act of Remembrance, it was felt, were becoming too militarised, and people looked across the Channel and saw the way in which, certainly in Nazi Germany, their Act of Remembrance had been totally militarised and taken over by the party state in Germany. And I think there was a worry at that stage that the poppy could be hijacked. Maybe today it's not as appropriate and it's not so widely worn, but that was the history of it, and I think one has to bear that in mind.
Ted, thank you very much, Colonel. We've got 20 seconds. Away you go, sir.
The first poppies were sold in 1933. They were a challenge to the continuing drive to war. The person driving to war was Hitler. What did he do with pacifists? Chamberlain was the one who was appeasing and trying to avoid war.
Thank you very much. We have to end it there, gentlemen. Ted Harrison, author of Remembrance Today, and Colonel John Hamilton, my former sparring partner, and no doubt we'll have him on again, because he's always a cracking listen. Thank you very much, gentlemen. I enjoyed that. It was good, wasn't it?
Call 08459 455 555.
08459 455 555.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
Morning, that's the phone number to call. We'll be talking more about homeschooling in just a few minutes. But first of all, we've been discussing work experience this morning. Is it a good thing, or is it a little bit exploitative? I've been asking for your experiences on work experience. Shirley's in Milton Keynes. Good morning, Shirley.
Good morning, Ian.
Have you done work experience?
Well, I haven't, but I've got grandchildren that have.
Right.
But I've got twin granddaughters.
Yes.
I've got one in the sixth form and one at college. They'll be 17 next week.
Right.
And both of them, they've both done work experience, but both of them now have got off their backsides and they've gone all over the place with their CVs, and they have both managed to get paid part-time jobs. And I am so proud of them, because they've just worked so hard.
And did they get... And congratulations to them for going around and knocking on doors. That's what it takes sometimes, isn't it?
It certainly does,
But
yes.
did they get these because of their work experience, do you think?
No, it's because they wanted to work.
Right.
But the one that's in college, she's doing hairdressing, but although she'd got her college place, she really wanted an apprenticeship.
Mm.
And she put CVs out in every hairdresser that she could think of. And the common thing is that they take them for 6 months without pay.
Ooh.
And then at the end of that 6 months, they then decide whether or not they're going to take them on for an apprenticeship or whether they just boot them out the door.
See, Shirley, 6 months seems a long time to be
certainly
working
is.
without any cash.
I think that is very exploitative.
Yeah.
Very exploitative, and I just don't agree with that at all.
OK, Shirley, thank you very much indeed. 08459 455 555. What's your experience? 6 months working without getting paid, and then, well, maybe we'll give you a job. No, I don't think so. That seems a little bit excessive, doesn't it? Now, here's another thing we've been talking about all morning. I find this fascinating. BBC Three Counties has discovered that at least 1,000 children are being homeschooled in the Beds, Herts and Bucks area, and it seems that number is rising. Parents only have to tell their local council that they're teaching at home if they're withdrawing their child from school, so that number could be much higher to include kids who've never even been to school. June McDonald taught 2 of her 4 children at home and set up a group in Bedford. It's the first in the country. Well, hang on, I'm getting... You're sticking your fingers up at me. Why? What have I said wrong?
It was 3 of my children, in fact.
Oh,
yes,
you're sticking...
3 of my 4 children.
3 of your 4 children. You've created a thing called Place. What is that? Explain that to me briefly.
The Place programme is an association between a local school in Bedford and the Bedford Borough LA, and it provides lots of measures of funded support for children who are home educated. They are registered with the scheme and are on a subsidiary role at Biddenham Upper School, and there are lots of measures of support from enrichment programmes right through to GCSE support and examinations.
So it's kind of a halfway house between homeschooling and, in inverted commas, normal schooling.
Yeah, it's been described as a sort of hybrid between homeschooling and school. The difference being that the parents still have a great deal of say in the direction that their children's education takes and in how the funding is actually used to support the children's learning.
Were there any problems setting this up?
We're fortunate in having a very innovative and supportive leader at the school. That's Mr. Mike Beryl, who originally was involved in making contact with our local home education group and has been instrumental and extremely supportive in helping us to establish this and keep it going.
But didn't the government have a little bit of a problem with it to start with? They thought it was illegal or something?
They certainly did, yes, in the beginning. The issue being that technically, if children are registered at a school, there's an issue if they're not attending.
Right.
However, the LA, our local LA, now supports Place as an alternative provision. And of course, there are very many reasons why children are home educated. And the LA, in fact, will refer children to the scheme if they feel that it's going to be a suitable provision.
Why did you home educate 3 of your kids?
I was at home with my second daughter. My first daughter went right through school. I was at home because I was working from home. I'd set up a business under the enterprise scheme, and education never really started at school as such, or at school age. It just naturally developed from my relationship with my daughter as a mother, and she began to show interest in reading and writing and could already read and write quite competently by the time she got to statutory school age. So we made not a long-term decision, we made a short-term decision that things seemed to be going very well at home, and I was able to work with her because of the fact that I had the business at home. And we thought, well, why send her at the moment? Because it seemed to be going so well.
It's a big commitment. I mean, of course, a lot of people say, well, we've had some text saying, well, of course, education should start at home. And it does with us. We've got 2 little boys, and our boy's 3 in January. He wrote his first A the other day. We're like, my God, you've written an A. You're a genius. He is a genius, but that's by the by. But it's, we're quite happy to start it at home, and then when he gets to school age, to hand it on to those people that are qualified to do it. What qualifies you to teach them?
I think that the relationship that parents have with their children is a very special relationship, and the most of a child's learning in terms of language and its perception of the world and its interest in education actually does start with parents. Parents, I think, underestimate the huge influence that they have in their children's lives. And I think, in a sense, whether a child is educated through home education or whether a child is educated through school education, we must never underestimate the significance and importance that parents play and can play in their children's lives. lives and particularly in their children's education.
One of the great things, the oldest goes to nursery now, is the fact that he is learning things from other people. So he comes home and says words and phrases and has ideas that we would never have thought of. Isn't that part of what it is about, sending them out to school, is they are learning from other people and getting other opinions that aren't yours?
Well, you have that. You're giving an indication of that common misconception about home education, that children are cloistered at home and don't have any normal interactions in the real world, whereas in fact home educated children are as much a part of normal society as any other children. The PLACE programme incidentally does give the children enormous opportunities to mix and socialise and learn together in all sorts of settings, so the children can in fact engage in activities, taught activities, every day of the week if they wish. So there are lots of opportunities for them to socialise, learn together and have that input from other adults.
I'm going to ask a question, just because we've been asking it all morning, and I would feel I'd let the listeners down if I didn't. Are your kids weird?
No.
You had to think for a second there.
No. No, they're not weird, no. I wonder what you mean by weird.
Well, just because that interaction, obviously PLACE is kind of accommodating that there is interaction with other kids and other grown-ups in other situations. But there is a perception that the kids that are homeschooled, and some of them are isolated a bit more than normal, that they don't have the basic social skills that are necessary to get ahead in the world.
Well, I think you're right, Ian. I think that in some home education situations, parents may perhaps be a little insular and not engage in social interaction as much as would be ideal. But for me personally, and for the families who elect to register with PLACE, because that is what they do, they choose to register, that socialisation and that social inclusion and integration and that community is an absolutely critical part of their home education.
If people want to find out more about PLACE, is there a website they can go and have a look at?
There is, yes. It's www.place, that's PLACE-project.org.
Fantastic. Well, listen, you've put forward an excellent argument, June. Thank you very much indeed. I've had a very interesting email, which I'll read. Indulge me, I'll read it in a second. It's quite long. But coming up in the last hour of the show, find out why so many kids are now being homeschooled in the three counties. Are children who are taught by their parents a bit weird? Reporter Justin Dealey plans to bring together as much AstroTurf from Luton Town's old pitch as he can. We've been talking all week about it. I don't think he's going to get anywhere. Next Wednesday, he's going to be stood in the BBC Three Counties car park with whatever AstroTurf he can muster. I don't think he's going to have any. We'll find out how his project is going. And it's Rock and Roll Friday. Got some music coming up later on. 08459 455 555.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
Indulge me if you will. Leonie Williams has emailed me. It's a little bit long, but I feel I should read it out because this has never crossed my mind. I never mean to cause offence, but I'll read it out and see what you think. For the attention of Iain Lee, please stop using the name of God inappropriately. Yes. Oh my God, my toe hurts. Not necessary. See a doctor. Oh my God, about the English weather. Not necessary. Perhaps if you're in New York recently, yes. I listen to the show 6:30 till 7 daily. Oh, she's not listening anymore. We'll send her an email. And this week, every day in that half hour, you have used the name of God inappropriately. If you were using Muhammad, you would be out of a job by now. The BBC couldn't cope with the complaints they receive. Stop being offensive to Christians. Thank you, Leonie Williams. I never considered it really, because God has kind of entered the parlance that it is. I'm doing God with a small g, and God, as in a God, it's just a phrase, isn't it? It's just a phrase. I know that some people years ago could still be offended by it. And it's one of those things that I say, I'm not going, oh, Jesus, or I'm not doing that, and I would never necessarily do that on the radio. But God, really? A little straw poll, dear listener. Text 81333. It means nothing. There's no scientific basis in it at all. Are you offended by me saying God? I do say it a lot. And I don't say it in reference to the Christian God or anything like that. I just say it as, oh, flippin' heck. Blimey. Blimey's even worse. God blimey means God blind me. So... Where do you draw the line? 81333. Just a little text. Start your text 3CR. Are you offended by me using the word God? Yes or no? That's all. It won't necessarily change anything. I'm keen to get your opinion. If you want to put a little explanation as well, then please do. And I'll send Leonie a little email later on, just, apologising, but kind of explaining my position on it, that it is now part of the language. But 81333, start your text 3CR. Does it offend you if I say the word God? It's what we all do, don't we? You can give us a call as well if you want, 08459 455 555. I'll carry on because we've got lots to cram in this last hour of the show. Have you ever considered teaching your children at home instead of sending them to school? Well, BBC Three Counties has uncovered figures to show at least 1,000 kids are being homeschooled in beds, hearts and bucks, and that figure is rising. James, who's 11, and 8-year-old Hannah told our reporter Jessica Cooper why they enjoy being taught at home.
It's absolutely brilliant. It gives you a lot more free time and you can get more work done in an hour than anyone can do in a whole day at school, because one teacher has to focus on so many students learning the exact same thing, whereas at home you can just sit down, learn things. I mean, you could do one morning and you could take the next day off, and it's so much more free than school.
Do you ever feel like you miss going to school, or you would like to go to school to see other children?
Not really. I've been to school before and I didn't really like it, so
I went to school. I went to my lower school and then I went up to middle school for about 3 months and I didn't like it, so I came out.
Well, Heidi Carrascan teaches her 9 and 7-year-old children at home and is involved with the Milton Keynes Group Free Range Education. Morning, Heidi.
Morning.
Why did you decide to teach your kids at home?
When my son was a baby, I researched it quite extensively. I met a family who were already home educating their children. And I went to the library, I joined Education Otherwise, it's a big charity organisation, and met up with lots of home educating families. So by the time my son was school age, I couldn't see any reason to send him to school, so I decided to delay it and perhaps reassess in a year, see how we got on, and it went from there. I haven't looked back. We've made lots and lots of friends and done lots and lots of things.
But you say you couldn't see any reason. Can I suggest some of the reasons, perhaps? And you can back them away as you want. Right. They get to interact with other kids of all different races, religions and backgrounds, and social backgrounds.
Yeah.
They get the opinions of different adults that are different from you and your partner, if you have a partner.
Yeah.
They get to develop an independence because they're not seeing their parents for quite a few hours in the day. Those are 3 quite big things, aren't they?
Okay, yeah, but you're assuming that my children never leave my house. We go out in the community all the time. My children get the chance to play with other children on our street. They play out all the time with the other children who actually do go to school. They get to socialise with not just children, with adults as well. They're part of my local community, certainly, because I am. And they certainly get time to spend away from me. The activities that Sarah Abbott, who runs Free Education, organises are wonderful and very varied. And not all of them require me to go with them. So I take them, drop them off, and they have a marvellous time, like the Forest School, where one of your reporters was yesterday, and then I go and pick them up and hear about their day.
What do people say when you say you home educate? Do you get funny looks at all?
Occasionally.
Yeah.
There are some people who react like that, but I found mostly people are really interested. If they haven't heard from it before, a light lights up in their eyes, and they say, how wonderful. They've normally got an awful story about their own schooling to tell, and they want to know more. That's a general reaction I get.
How do you get the kids how do you structure it? Do you structure it like a normal school day? So, like, from 9 till 10:30 we're doing maths, and then we're going to have a little break, and then we're going to do English literature, and then it's history. How does it work?
You can do it like that, and some educators absolutely do, and that's fine. The wonderful thing about home education is you can tailor it to your child. I know my 2 very well, and they don't tend to concentrate particularly well if I force the subject on them. But if, for example, they ask me a marvellous question, which happens about 600 times a day,
Oh, of course.
we make time to answer it. So we can have a maths lesson over cornflakes for breakfast, which is what we did the other morning, because they asked me a question and they were engaged and interested.
Heidi, you can't do maths lesson over cornflakes. You can't do that. They need to be sat down and focused, don't they?
No, absolutely not. They were focused and interested at that particular moment in time, and they took in that particular subject and question, the answer to that question, within 5 minutes, rather than spending half an hour trying to force it into them when they weren't interested.
But kids aren't. One of the things that made me a little bit sad is too strong a word, but anxious was the kid. One of the kids we had in that report was, I went to school for a bit. I didn't like it, so I got taken out.
Yeah,
that's kind of tough, isn't it? That's just tough. There are loads of situations. Bits of school I didn't like. I had to stick with it. Jobs I've had I didn't like. I had to stick with them. That's life, isn't it?
To a certain extent, yes. But they still get to experience things they don't like. Because, like you say, that's life. And if they're experiencing life at all, you still get to experience those things. But it may have been a slight understatement. I'm not entirely sure of the circumstances for that particular child, but didn't like it could cover a huge amount of things. And it might have been that actually it was more a horrific experience rather than just a didn't like it experience.
Heidi, free range education, what is it and what do they do?
It's run by Sarah Abbott. She organises a plethora of activities for home-educated children. We had a day at Warrener School Farm where we learnt about spinning and natural dyeing. They've spent a day at Hatfield House. It's kind of the cool school trips that children get to go on. I myself run music classes, and we do a yearly Christmas concert to give the children a chance to experience that kind of thing, because that's one thing that home-educated children don't get to participate in, is the big school concert at the end of the year. So we did one last year, and we're doing one this year. Karate, golf, badminton,
It sounds brilliant. It sounds brilliant. It genuinely sounds like loads of stuff I would love to have done as a kid. I'd love to do now. But what about physics and chemistry and English literature and Shakespeare and history? Do your kids know about those?
Yeah. Sarah runs sessions for all of those as well. She does science and English and French and art and Mandarin. You can participate or not as your child is interested. Like I said, when my children asked me, it was a couple of years ago, where the wool that we wear comes from, we organised the day at the spinning and natural dyeing farm.
Heidi, listen, we have to leave it there. Thank you. Heidi Carrascan, who home-educates her kids who are 9 and 7. Thank you very much. Everyone's putting up very good arguments about this. Let's see if Sephora could do the same. Good morning, Sephora.
Hi, good morning.
You're in Milton Keynes. You've been homeschooling your kids for a couple of years, have you?
I have, yes.
What ages are they, and what made you make that decision?
My girls are now aged 8. They will be 9 next month.
Yep.
And they did actually go to school for a couple of years. We actually pulled them out when they were in year 2. And the main reason was I felt that school just wasn't catering for their needs. I felt that particularly one of my daughters was not being stretched enough, and I felt that I had to keep going into school and telling them about how bored she was. And one thing I have often found with schools is that if you've got well-behaved, quiet children, they tend to get overlooked a lot. And one thing I found about our particular school, the school that we went to, was that they were using very much a one-size-fits-all approach to the children's education, which I feel, as Heidi was saying earlier on, if you're homeschooling, you can tailor-make your child's education. So you're teaching them what they need, as they need it, at the correct level.
But then couldn't you then do that at home anyway? So they go to school and they have that that approach to schooling, and then they come home in the evening, you can kind of educate them in your side as well. So they're getting because there is a danger that your style of education, and I don't know what it is, but that could be perceived as being a bit one-sided as well, and a bit biased.
You could say that, but, as you say, you were saying that they could get the best of both worlds, but I feel that going into school doesn't necessarily mean they're getting the best of both worlds. I think they also suffer from many other things that don't exist if they're educated at home, such as peer pressure, having to fit in with all the other children and do.
But that's life, though, isn't it, Sephora? That's life. That's what we all have to learn to deal with that.
It is, but I think as a parent, you know, I'd like my children to learn about all of this in a more sensible approach. I don't think that being put in a classroom full of 30 children, where everybody is, you know, feeling as though they've got to do the same thing, you know, fit into a mould almost.
So, listen, we have to end it there. Sorry to cut you short. We're running a bit short of time, and I can hear the cats calling you as well. So go and sort that out. Thank you very much. I'm finding this fascinating. So much to cram in this hour, though. Joined now by Jonathan Vernon-Smith. Lovely to have you here. You sounded like a balloon with the air being let out there very slowly.
Oh, dear,
lovely,
oh dear.
Lovely to have you here, my darling.
The good news for all the listeners who are wondering what the hell's he laughing about, is the whole of what has just gone on has been recorded. Will be on the internet later on today. So
I didn't know. No. I thought you was holding just a cassette. Oh, nuts.
Ladies and gentlemen, you've got to go onto the... will this be on Facebook later? Yeah, it'll be on Facebook. You must go onto the Three Counties Radio Facebook page later on and watch what just went on.
No. I was only joking. You're not fired, Ollie. It was just a joke. Didn't know it was being... Jonathan, how lovely to see you.
Oh, dear, you made me hurt.
Oh, you make me hurt every day you leave me. It's so nice to see.
You're in a terrifying mood today.
Yes, I tell you why, I woke up with a migraine. I took far too many painkillers.
Is that what it is? Yes, you seem a little bit medicated.
I am medicated, yes. I am medicated.
Right, OK.
It looked like you were doing the Backstreet Boys dance there. Do you remember that? The Backstreet Boys are now... The Backstreet Boys have teamed up with New Kids on the Block to make NKOTBBS. B. I think.
Oh.
Imagine that. That's too many letters.
Quick, let me get on with this so I can get out of here. It's a scary place to be.
OK, please. You want to leave my drug den? Or... For that is what it is this morning. Legal. Tell us what you've got in your show, and then away with thee.
Are you going to be... We're going for lunch today. Are you going to be all right?
Oh, well, I'll have come down by then, yes.
Thank goodness.
Yes.
You'll be on your downer then,
yes.
Will you?
So, well, are you paying? Boss is paying.
Who's paying? We've not actually discussed who's paying. I thought you'd be paying.
Boss is paying.
Really?
Boss takes you out for lunch, boss pays. Boss equals BBC equals licence payer. Thanks very much, dear listener.
Where are we going, though? That's the question.
Burger King. What's on the show?
Coming up on the show this morning, I've been very interested in your discussion you've been having about wearing the poppy.
Yes.
Loved your conversation again with the Colonel. Coming up after 9, should everyone in the UK wear a poppy?
Where's yours?
Remember, it's on my coat upstairs. I knew you were going to ask me that.
Okay.
But it's on my coat, but it's gone all floppy. The joke this morning from my producer, who's such a wag, she said, "You've not altered it." But the reality is, after wearing
they're made of paper. You wouldn't. That's ridiculous.
Exactly. But after just a couple of days, they tend to go a bit droopy.
You get a floppy poppy.
You do get a floppy poppy, and I've got a floppy poppy on my coat upstairs. But remember, it's Sunday takes place this weekend, and millions of people are already wearing a poppy as a mark of respect. But every year there's a debate about the wearing of poppies, and some people express concern that they've been made to feel guilty for not wearing their poppy. Well, from 9 this morning, should everyone in the UK wear a poppy? Should you be thoroughly ashamed of yourself if you've not got a poppy on? Where's yours? You said to the Colonel earlier, you've not got one. Where's yours?
I have no poppy, floppy or otherwise.
Why not?
I don't have a poppy.
I put £2 in their box the other day.
Well, you put in £1 for me. Thank you very much. I'll go and grab one as I walk past the set. I do feel a little bit in two minds about it.
Right.
There is a lot of pressure, I think, particularly here at the BBC, to wear a poppy.
Yes.
If we were in Vision on the telly, for those not technically minded, that we would be...
We are.
Oh. We will be frowned upon for not wearing a poppy. And I just kind of think, because I'm a pacifist, I don't particularly agree with the wars that are going on at the moment.
Sometimes they're necessary. That one against Hitler, that was necessary.
Well, yeah, that was quite a few years ago.
Well, it's still necessary.
Well, yeah, it was necessary.
Pacifists going to have said, "Oh no, let's just let him do whatever he wants to do."
No,
of course not.
No, of course we fought the forces of international fascism.
Exactly.
Then.
My grandfather was a tank driver.
My grandfather didn't fight in the war.
Didn't he?
No.
Well, from 9 this morning, I want to know, should everyone in the UK wear a poppy? 08459 455 555. It's been a terrifying morning, but I've quite enjoyed it.
I think they've spat on you there. Go away. Jonathan Vernon-Smith will be on at 9 o'clock. Always worth a listen.
The BBC in beds, hearts and bucks. This is BBC Three Counties Radio.
Right, always worth a listen. I thoroughly recommend you listen to Jonathan at 9 o'clock. 08459 455 555 is the telephone number if you want to give us a call. Now, your son or daughter may be finding it difficult to get to work. Well, businesses in a Hertfordshire village have come together to offer work experience with a difference. Teenagers try out a number of different jobs with different companies rather than just one, so they kind of move around from place to place. Recent statistics showing that 1 in 5 youngsters are currently out of work in Hertfordshire. Well, earlier on we heard from our reporter Sophie Solaria, who was speaking to Christina. She's one of the young people involved in this scheme. She was about to start her first day with an estate agent in Kings Langley. Let's find out how she's getting on.
Hey. I'm Richard Clayton. I'm the director of Pendley Estates in Kings Langley.
Richard, you've taken on your first work experience on the Kings Langley scheme today. What are you going to be telling Christina to do?
Well, she's going to be moving around the office, seeing various different people. She's with David at the moment looking at sales progression, and she's going to move on to Karen, who's going to help her with loading up some references and looking at how we market rental properties, and we're also going to get her out taking some photographs.
Photographs, which is exactly what Christina wants to do. Well, she loves photography.
Yes, I understand, which makes her a kindred spirit to Rachel, who's our office photographer, so they'll be going out together later on to get some nice pictures.
Why do you think it's good to encourage young people to do these kind of schemes?
Well, I think if they're left on the sidelines, they're just going to be left fending for themselves and forgotten. And to be honest with you, there's a lot of talent out there. They just need the confidence to come in somewhere like this and spend some time with us and see what we do.
I'm going to find out from Christina how she's enjoying her first day. Hello, Christina. You've been here a good couple of hours now. Tell me how it's going at the estate agents.
Yeah, it's going well. Things are a lot more complicated than you think they are with buying houses, and how you have to have so many people involved and things like that.
I've just been told you're going to be going out with maybe a photographer a bit later on to take photos of houses. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, that'll be really exciting, because I've never really done anything like that, and seeing how they make things look good and the angles.
So that really taps into your love of photography, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
Well, listen, good luck with the rest of it, and hopefully we'll catch up in a few months to find out how you got on.
Thank you.
Well, with us now is the person who thought of the idea. It's Jeff Falkins. He owns Dalling & Co., the deli in Kings Langley. Morning, Jeff.
Good morning.
You came up with this idea because you and the local butcher are having a bit of a moan. Is that right?
Well, you know, you get to a certain age and you have to whinge about things, and we had a good moan back in the early part of the year.
I'm looking forward to becoming an old man, Jeff, because I'm going to be so grumpy and so miserable. I am already at 39. So what were you saying? How did this come about?
Well, there'd been some press about the job seekers having to do work for various companies, and it was skewed in two different directions depending on which part of the media you were listening to. But yeah, we were just saying, it would really be great to have help in our shops, and small businesses struggle, and wouldn't it be great we could give back the experience of trying different businesses. Who knows, maybe it would lead to a job, or at least open people up into seeing the kind of things that are out there, and really what they do want to do, what they don't want to do. And I mentioned it to our MP, and he mentioned it to the Secretary of State for Employment at the time, and the next thing I know, my wife and I, Claire, were down at Westminster talking about it, and they were setting it up as a kind of pilot project to see how it worked, and maybe it could be moved around the country.
So there is talk of this, isn't there, as you say, of it becoming a nationwide scheme?
Well, apparently, I mean, what the minister did was got the job centre people in Watford in touch with us, and they've been fantastic. They've really, really organised and really good. And we got people in here. And I think we've had a visit from the Deputy Prime Minister's office, to talk about it further, because they're very keen on youth unemployment. Or youth employment.
Yes, so they're keen on youth unemployment. Some people would say that, yes.
That wouldn't sound right, no. And so, we'll see how it goes. I know there's certainly a keen interest, because it's a win-win for everybody, really. It doesn't cost the taxpayer any money. The organisation is already in place to get candidates forward. For shopkeepers or business owners, we have all sorts of different businesses in Kings Langley get involved. It does cost us a bit of time, and it gives us a bit of help. We get a bit, those shelves you need dusting, or odd little things you don't get around to, and you're certainly not going to hire a new member of staff for. Yeah, it catches you up, and everybody kind of wins out of the thing, and so far, the young people we've had through have, for the most part, generally enjoyed it.
How many people have you had come through?
It's about 6 or 7 right now.
You say generally enjoyed it. Have there been some that have gone, I'm not doing that?
Well, we had a couple just didn't come in again. They came once or twice and just didn't show up. They got the apprentice, you're fired comment 5 days later when they did call.
Has anybody received a paid job off the back of this?
Yes, there's one young man who is doing some part-time work with a local plastics firm. They're really, really enthusiastic owner, Mark, and he's just been supportive from the first day. When I first even told him that the MP had moved this forward, he was like, right, put my company in there, definitely want to do that, and he's really fantastic. And I think he's got this young chap on board for a couple of days a week. Another young chap got an opportunity through one of the jobs he did. There's a car restoration firm in Kings Langley, and the chap there put him in touch with somebody for an IT apprenticeship. Unfortunately, that's an example that, where it didn't work so well. That he was all excited and really interested, and it went and then didn't show up for a few days. And the guy who was running it, like most businessmen, turned around and said, well, if you're not going to be here, forget it. So, it's mixed.
There are some people, Jeff, who would say this is exploitative. You're just getting young people in to do all the jobs that you don't want to do for free.
Yeah, well, I would challenge anyone on that. It's not like that at all. All these people have said, well, first off, they're learning skills. They're learning, however temporary and how brief it might be. They're getting experiences they wouldn't have normally. Many of them have never had any experience. They're not equipped for the workforce. I've had to show people literally how to hold a broom and how to mop a floor. So I'm doing it as well. And it's nothing we wouldn't do ourselves. They're getting a chance to experience new things. And the comment that's come from many of them has been, when it's been finished, they've said, gosh, it's really a shame. We really, really want to get into work because it was worth getting out of bed for. It was nice to have something to get out of bed for.
Jeff, one final question, going off on a slight tangent. How on earth did a Canadian end up in Kings Langley with a deli? And I'm guessing by your accent. I'm hoping I put my money on the right colour there.
Oh, absolutely.
There we go.
Just good luck, I guess. I've been living in Europe and got moved here. I was working in a different industry at the time, and I ended up here. And what we've got now is a really good thing. I'm married to a fantastic woman from the Midlands, Claire, who really is the brains of the operation in the deli, and she takes care of it all.
I can hear your phone ringing. People are desperate to get some cheesecake and some bagels. Off you go, Jeff. Thank you very much indeed. Jeff Falkins owns Dalling & Co., the deli in Kings Langley. Why do we talk to foodie people at this time of the morning? It's not fair. Now I'm hungry. Now I'm thinking I could do with some of that.
Text 81333. Start your message with 3CR. Text charged at the standard network rate.
This is BBC Three Counties Radio.
Lots coming up in the last half hour. We'll have the result in a few minutes of that little off-the-cuff poll we took, whether you're offended with me using the word God or not. Don't text in anymore. We have the figures. We'll get there shortly. Now, the NHS has today been warned of a significant rise in patient complaints by the Health Service Ombudsman. In one case, a bereaved daughter was told death is rarely an ideal situation for anyone, and a multiple sclerosis sufferer from Hertfordshire had his catheter bag delivery stopped without warning. The Ombudsman's report also highlights a 16% rise in patient complaints about being struck off by a GP list unfairly, in spite of issuing a warning about this very issue last year. Well, James Johnston is Director of Health Investigation for the Ombudsman. Good morning, James.
Good morning. Hello.
What can you tell us about this complaint against NHS Hertfordshire?
Well, the complaint is one of a number of examples in our national report here this morning. The complainant, Mr. H, had multiple sclerosis, as you say, and was using a catheter bags to drain his bladder. When his supply of bags ran low, he would ring his local PCT, the NHS Hertfordshire, and they would arrange for a replacement supply of bags to be provided. However, the procedures changed, and one day when he rang them, they told him they couldn't send him anymore. Under the new procedures, he'd have to go to see his GP, get a prescription, before they would then provide them to him. He rang our office and said he'd been given no warning about this, and obviously given the situation he was in, it was quite important it was resolved quickly. So we spoke to NHS Hertfordshire, explained the situation to them, and arranged for them to help, and luckily they agreed to continue providing the bags under the previous arrangements until he was able to put matters right with his GP and move across to the new way of working. So what we're seeing in that one example is something we see across a number of the other cases we've highlighted in our report, that relatively straightforward matters such as the apologies and explanations and the example you showed of quite insensitive comments in response to bereavement can be put right better locally, and we would ask the NHS to do more of that in future.
Complaints against East and North Hertfordshire NHS trusts have more than doubled, haven't they? And Lister and QE2 Hospital fall under this trust. It's quite worrying, isn't it, James?
Well, the thing to bear in mind in looking at the numbers in isolation is that there are lots of different factors that can affect them. or an organisation might encourage more complaints and be more open about complaints being made, which is a good thing, and that might mean more numbers come through. We've seen from the Hertfordshire area around 300 complaints coming through to us, of which about 100 were from that trust. But actually, we've only needed to invoke our full investigative powers in just 3 examples of those cases. The vast majority have been able to be put right without the need for us to use our full investigative powers. So it is a mixed picture. What we're saying is some of these very straightforward, relatively straightforward themes that can be picked up should be responded to better at local level to make sure that complaints are viewed as opportunities to learn. That's what most people who come to us say they want, is for other people not to have the same experience they've had, and that people can have reassurance that when things do go wrong, as they will from time to time in a complex organisation like the NHS, things are put right there and then without the need for the complaint to come through to the Ombudsman.
We've got figures for Bedfordshire and Bucks too, and they haven't really increased. Why would one trust like Hearts see an increase? Is it because they're doing things so terribly wrong? Are there more grumpy complainers in Hertfordshire?
Well, a lot of different things can affect the numbers, as I say, in isolation. So, without being able to go into the detail of all the individual cases, but what's important is that when complaints are made, they're valued and they're learnt from, and that they are resolved as best as possible at local level. And as I say, for the cases which have come through from that organisation, the vast majority have been resolved without the need for a full formal investigation by the office.
Is there a chance that these complaints could go more unheard as the NHS overhaul gets underway?
Well, as you highlight, the NHS is going through an unprecedented period of change in its 60-year history, and what we're highlighting in our report is that as new organisations come into the NHS, as different organisations pick up different kinds of services, that focus on making sure that complaints are dealt with well at local level continues to take place. And where people are getting a good response to their complaint about an NHS service, whether that's provided by an independent provider or an NHS provider, they can come through to the Ombudsman service if they're not happy with how their complaint has been responded to, and we will look very carefully at the issues they've raised and get our own clinical advice if needed, so that we can make sure that things are being put right where they've gone wrong.
Thank you very much, James Johnson, Director of Health Investigation for the Ombudsman.
Call 08459 455 555.
08459 455 555.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
A little update. Leonie Williams emailed me and said, please stop using the name of God inappropriately. Please stop being offensive to Christians. And I'd never really thought about it. And I'm not using God with a capital G. I'm not using the Christian God. It's just a word, isn't it, in my opinion. We had a little straw poll via the text. The results are in. I'm surprised. I'll be honest, I'll be surprised. 60% of you offended by it. 60% of those who texted in. I tell you what, I'm not going to stop it completely because it's so much part of my vernacular. I will be aware of it, and I will try and lower it a little bit. That's the best I can promise. I will be aware of it, and I will try and say something else instead. Oh, please, I don't. I nearly did it then. It's so part of me. Now, this is just going to be. We covered a story about a potential five-a-side AstroTurf football pitch in the Bedfordshire village of Eaton Bray. And it was very fiery. It sounds like a small thing, but listen, lots of you have got village greens and you want to protect them, and it actually became very fiery and very feisty. Well, Justin Dealey, who is our AstroTurf correspondent, got all excited. All right, girls, all right, listen, I've got a great idea, girls. All right, what we're going to do, right, is, basically, he's a big fan of Luton Town, and he bought a tiny square, the tiniest square, of Luton Town's AstroTurf pitch for a tenner. Right, they saw him coming, and it was this pitch was used, I don't know, in the 80s, I don't know. And he said, what we'll do is there must be thousands of people across the country, across Beds, Herts and Bucks, that have got bits of this AstroTurf. We'll put out a call on the radio, we'll get all of these people together, and then next Wednesday, we'll get them together and we'll recreate, in the BBC Three Counties car park, we will recreate Luton Town's pitch, and we'll get like a legend of the club to come and play on it, and it'll be fantastic. And we're like, Justin, I really don't think this one's going to fly. I really don't think this one's going to work. He's, no, trust me, there'll be thousands. We did it. We went to it on Wednesday. We had one call from a bloke who said, yeah, I've got some. Can you come in on Wednesday? Probably not. Embarrassing. Well, Justin Dealey's on with us now. Good morning, Justin.
Hello, Ian.
This
Hello.
is embarrassing, mate. And
No.
next Wednesday...
Hey, listen, I've just been approached by 2 traffic wardens. and
Say move.
I promise you, the hand on my heart, the first thing they said was, how are you getting on with the pitch?
Yeah, because they feel sorry for you, Justin, because you know
they
next
don't.
week it's going to be you and your little square inch of greengrocer's grass in the car park, looking all sad and lonely,
Well.
and then collecting your P45 straight after.
No, you are wrong. Hang on a second, we've got some scaffolders doing some work here. You are wrong, because the AstroTurf hotline has been red hot this week.
There's a hotline?
Yes,
Wow.
there is. There is a hotline. I can tell you that we've tracked down, get this, at least 75% of the old AstroTurf pitch.
You kept that up your sleeve?
75%. Isn't that
Really?
incredible? Yes, yes.
Where is it?
Well, we started off with my 10 centimetres, which is at
And
home.
It literally is 10 square
It is.
centimetres. It's tiny. It's a tenner. They totally saw you coming.
Fans have been in touch. They have rolls of the pitch. I got 2 texts last night.
Wow.
Somebody in Flissig apparently has got a huge roll. Somebody in Luton has got a huge roll. But yesterday, I spoke to an AstroTurf dealer who also owns...
Well, hang on, sorry. And there are dealers in AstroTurf?
Yes.
This is fantastic.
This is
Okay.
wonderful, yes. They sniff it all day long, and they love it. So, this AstroTurf dealer said to me that, yes, the Luton Town pitch, it was me that purchased the majority of that pitch back in 1991. He got very excited. Hold on. Went away, came back, went, yeah, I've still got it. So... he is going to bring the pitch next week via a lorry. we might need a crane for this. We might need a crane. But we are definitely going to have at least 75% of the pitch.
Where are we going to put it? The car park's not that big.
We'll have to drag it around the corner as well.
Okay,
And go up the hill.
Yeah.
But I can tell you that you were taking the mickey the other day.
I
That
was.
the AstroTurf hotline's been red hot. We've got 75% of the pitch.
Wow.
May not be next Wednesday. Potentially next Friday.
Okay.
But we are there. We are there, Ian.
And have we got a legend of Luton Town Football Club, if such a thing exists, to come and kick a ball on it?
Not quite. I've got to be quite delicate with that conversation. We might go for something like Mick Harford, and the reason we might go for Mick is because the last game on that AstroTurf pitch was back in 1991.
Right.
Luton had to beat Derby to stay up. They beat them 2-0.
Yeah.
Mick Harford...
Who is Mick Harford?
Mick Harford. Who is Mick Harford?
Who is
How
Mick
very
Harford?
dare you?
Yes.
Legend. Absolute Luton Town legend.
Right.
Played for the club, also managed the club. That didn't go too well, but he is a legend. He was playing for Derby that day against Luton, and he scored an own goal. Luton had to stay up. Luton had to stay up. They had to win to stay up. Mick Harford scored the own goal, so...
Did he do that deliberately?
Well, we think he might have done.
Oh, we'll find out.
Apparently he admitted it 2 years ago. We can hopefully ask him that
How
question
naughty.
face to face. So, the other person who scored that day, Lars Elstrup, we believe he's now in a cult in Denmark, so he might be hard to track down. But Mick Harford, we know, lives locally, and we can hopefully get him in the studio and recreate that famous own goal.
Okay, so we're... That's what we're going to do. So we're aiming for next Friday now, are we?
We're aiming for next Friday. In saying that, other leads are coming in. Somebody said to me yesterday that...
You're loving this. I really thought you were going to have egg all over your face.
No,
You're loving
not
this.
at all. Apparently, Whipsnade Zoo bought some of the pitch as well. So we're going from Cambridge to Whipsnade Zoo. And we also think, and leave this one with me, we also think the AstroTurf that was used at Kenilworth Road might have been used in a Hollywood film. Leave that one with me.
Justin Daly, we will leave it. There you go. He kept that quiet. He came in this morning and we were all jibbing him, saying, "Oh, Justin, don't forget we're going to do the AstroTurf today." He's very, very quiet. He had a little confident smirk, though, didn't he? Justin Daly, well done. OK, well, that's very exciting. We're going to make history. 21 years anniversary. We're going to recreate that goal. Speaking of homeschooling, so, sorry, we're going off on so many tangents. Barbara from Houghton Regis. Good morning, Barbara.
Hello.
Now, we've been talking about homeschooling this morning.
Yeah.
Is it the best place to teach your kids? Did you teach your kids at home?
Right, I taught them at school for the first 8 years, and then I took them out of school for the final 3 to 4 years, and then I put them back into the school system, but at college level.
Why did you take them out?
Right, the first child I took out because she was dyslexic. I'd had her tested to be dyslexic, and I found the school gradually getting harder. I found her, in the end, I found them actually were making it life very difficult for me. I got her into the Dyslexic Institute for half a day a week to have specialist lessons, but the school would not allow me to actually go down that route. I needed to have her out on a Wednesday afternoon to get her over to Bedford from Dunstable.
They wouldn't let you do that?
No, they wouldn't let me do it. They said no, and so I felt I needed that. My daughter was crying going to school every day because she was so distressed with school at that point. I put up with that for a year of trying to get the school to help me, and I felt that they were being the opposite. And in the end, because my daughter was so distressed, and I mean so distressed, I felt she was on the point of a nervous breakdown. She's not that type of child. She sat down at Christmas in the armchair and she cried and she cried her way through Christmas. She did not want to take part in anything, and that was not her at all.
No. Barbara,
So
listen, I'm sorry to hurry on, 'cause
her out.
we're running out of time. Very quickly, did it work? Did they benefit?
Absolutely, it worked. In the end, she had several GCSEs, and then I sent her to Barnfield College, where they picked up, and they were marvellous.
Superb. I'm sorry to keep it so short, Barbara. We are running out of time, but I'm glad that it worked for you and your kids. That's fantastic. Very excitingly, today, Nick Coffer's got Brian May on. Oh, yeah, him from Queen. He's going to be on, talking about all kinds of bits and pieces, and he's always he's a thoroughly decent chap. I've met Brian May, and he's still got that big pompadour hairstyle, and it's all grey. He looks like a bonkers old professor, but he's so nice. So he'll be on with Nick a little bit later on. Now, listen, every Friday we've kind of got into this thing where we get a musician in, and we've had some odd stuff. We've had a ukulele band, we've had harps, and we've had some more kind of straightforward stuff. This morning, I'm joined by Cy Cranston. Good morning, Cy.
Hi, Ian.
How you doing? You all right?
I'm really good, mate.
You're
Great
kind of white, a bit perky for a musician at this time of the morning. I'm expecting...
Well, you know, I've got a couple of kids that get me up at 6 in the morning.
How old are your kids?
My son Caius is 1, and my daughter Tiva, she's 3.
Yeah, good luck with that. Mine are the same age. They're going to be 3 and 1 in January.
All right,
and they're bonkers at that age, aren't they?
Crazy. Great fun, but yeah, sleep, forget it.
It goes out the window. And the 3-year-old is kind of like chatting away and...
She's great. Yeah. I mean, she's like 3 going on 30, you know. It's quite frightening.
And it's... are you getting the why? Why? Daddy, why?
Yeah.
Why? No, we're turning this off. Why turning it off, Daddy?
Yeah.
That's just the constant conversation.
Yeah.
Why? We're going to get in the car. Why?
Yeah, exactly.
Do the seatbelt up. Why? And it never goes. I love it, but it never goes. Now, listen, you started out busking.
I did.
Years ago, I did a bit of busking. It's terrifying, isn't it?
It's freaky. It's frightening. The first time I ever went out busking was on the streets of the cobbled streets of Canterbury, where I was brought up. And basically, I remember the day I did it, and I just was like petrified. And there was a roadblock, and I thought the road was closed. And I said to my guitarist at the time, "Look, can we just cancel? Let's just cancel. Let's not do this," because I just was petrified that what were people going to make of me and what were people going to think of me. Anyway, I did my little 4 songs, and 70 quid in the hat.
Excuse me?
Half an hour.
Hang on a minute, that's better than getting here. 70 quid in half an hour. I never made that in... I mean, I did it a few times. The thing I found terrifying about it is the starting up. Once you're in it and doing it, it's fine, but it's the... Because if you go and do a gig, there's an expectation. You're going to walk on the stage, you're going to play some songs, people will applaud, and you will get off. But if you're stood outside Barclays or Safeway or something, and you're doing it, it's weird.
It is. It's something you just kind of overcome, and obviously the years I've been out there doing it is just second nature now. But, it's kind of like, busking? What is that? You're like a tramp on the street. Get off. Get a proper job.
But you get some good buskers, though. You see some terrible people.
You do.
I quite like the terrible people, but you see some cracking people as well.
Yeah, I mean, my father was a street trader, so kind of like, even though I was petrified the first time I actually went out there to do it, it just became second nature to me after a while.
It's kind of in your blood.
It is, yeah. Standing in the street, I love it. I love the hustle and bustle of people, and I just love, being out in the fresh air and singing. In fact, it's bizarre, because even though I've got my band and we're playing all around the world now, which is wonderful, I often miss the kind of like the personal touch to busking, the fresh air, the acoustics of my voice, reverberating off the pavements. I miss all that, because it all gets a bit crazy, the technology, the PAs.
Well, you're going off to Vegas.
I am. Yes.
So you talk about technology and PAs and craziness. That's the craziest place in the world. How on earth did you get that gig?
Well, I actually played there earlier this year.
Right.
And the promoter loved the band and myself that much that he insisted upon us playing next year, where Little Richard is headlining.
Sorry,
it's just amazing.
Are you opening up for Little Richard?
Yeah. Yeah.
Doesn't get much cooler than that.
It
that man invented rock and roll. Forget Elvis. It was that fella that did it.
Yeah.
What's the name of the band? We should mention that.
It's Cy Cranston. It's me.
Right. Okay. Right.
So it's kind of the band that I've sort of assembled behind my voice.
Yeah.
And when you say rock and roll, it's interesting because I fused kind of gospel soul with rock and roll, which is kind of interesting that Little Richard's name's been brought up, because Little Richard inspired a whole generation of soul crooners, soul shouters. Otis Redding probably wouldn't have been Otis Redding without Little Richard. He was a Little Richard impersonator.
Yeah.
And, of course, Otis Redding inspired generations of soul singers. So it's bizarre how music can cross the genres there. And, that's kind of where I'm at. I love listening to gospel soul. I love listening to rock and roll. And to me, it's all wonderful music.
I'm going to shut up. Do you want to sing us a song?
Oh, well, indeed. Speaking of Otis Redding, I'll do a quick cover for you. This is Dock of the Bay.
Lovely.
Sitting in the morning sun, I'll be sitting when the evening comes, watching the ships roll in. Then I'll watch them roll away again. Yes, I'm sitting on the dock of the bay, watching the tide roll away. Ooh, Lord, I'm sitting on the dock of the bay, wasting time. Look like nothing's gonna change. Everything still remains the same, Lord. I can do what people tell me to do, yeah. So I guess I'll remain the same. Just sitting here, resting my bones. And this loneliness won't leave me alone. See, 2,000 miles I've roamed just to make this dock my home. Now I'm just gonna sit on the dock of the bay, watching the tide roll away. Ooh, Lord, I'm sitting on the dock of the bay, just wasting time.
Listen, anybody that comes in and whistles on this show gets a round of applause. We'll have some of that. You were doing, cheekily, you were going for the teeth whistle as well, not the lip whistle, the teeth whistle.
I chipped my tooth doing martial arts years ago, and I've still got a little hole.
That was brilliant!
Thank you very much.
You're playing in Biggleswade tonight.
I am indeed.
Is it covers? Is it originals? Is it
It's
mix?
all originals, really.
Right.
Most we throw a few covers in there. We do a couple of Jackie Wilson songs, but with the band, I've kind of built a show of original songs. I've been songwriting my whole life, and I was lucky enough to live next to Graham Lyle, who was one of the big songwriters for Michael Jackson and Tina Turner.
Wow.
And I was a mate with his son. We used to ride bikes together, and he was a huge influence to me as a teenager.
How cool is that?
I was going to join the services, and then he called me up and said, Si, I think you've got the qualities of a true songwriter. So I ditched my ideas of army careers and went down the pathway of music, and I've never looked back.
Listen, very quick, you're running out of time. Is there a website if people want to go and find out more about you?
Indeed there is. It's CyCranston.com. It's CyCranston, spelt with a U, so it's Cranstoun.
Listen, we've got 2 minutes. Can you give us another one?
Yeah, sure. This is Coupe de Ville. Now, it was early on a weekday morning, and it seemed a sunny day was dawning, and we were down along the roadside strolling, 'cause that night we'd been a rockin' rollin', and then the thunder roared of a 5.4 V8, and all I got to see was a little bit of me in the rear tailgate. Coupe de Ville, you rode up and you took my everything. Stole my pretty girl away on 4 wheels in a spin. You destroyed me with that two-door 53. I can't conceal, my story's real, 'cause the girl left me for a Coupe de Ville. Chang-ka-dang, chang-chang, cha-dang-chang, chang-chang, cha-chang, chang-chang. Now I confess that you're a handsome devil, and you're driven by a rockin' rebel, and you've been riding on a different level.
in the finest way a man can travel. And then the thunder roar of a 5.4 V8. And all I got to see was a little bit of me in the rear tailgate. Who the bill you wrote up and you took my everything. Stole my pretty girl away on 4 wheels in a spin. You destroyed me with that 2-door 53. I can't conceal, my story's real, 'cause the girl left me for a Coupe de Ville.
Fantastic! We'll have some of that. Si, sorry to cut you a bit short. We've got to go to the travel. Superb stuff. Si Cranston, thank you very much for coming in. Oh, there we go. Let's hit that one, shall we? Si Cranston, thank you very much. Quickly give that website again if people
Indeed, yes, it's SiCranston.com. Visit me 24 hours of the day.
There you go, you see. Don't, not too late at night. Let's not be rude. Right, have a nice weekend. JVS up next.
Getting beds, hearts and bucks talking.
This is BBC Three Counties Radio.
Thank you, Iain.